Mr. Speaker.
Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interests of our people. Almachtige God, ons bid dat u gedrende ons vergaderings, ons dienodege wees hel sal gee en ons motiewe sewer sal hou. En dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelela Nkosi ilizwe lethu nabantu balo. Umisele uxolo Nkosi nokulunga kwiphondo lethu. Nkosi sikelela eAfrika. Gcina abantwana bayo. Khokhela Nkosi inkokheli zayo. Yinike uxolo Nkosi iAfrika. All this we beg in your most holy name. Amen. We may all be seated. Honorable members, both the honorable members who have joined us virtually and the honorable members who are here in the hybrid venue here in the chamber. You are welcome this afternoon, and thank you very much for your presence. I would like to welcome our guests, including the media, our members in the Fourth Estate, and of course, I would like to remind the honorable members that the rules of virtual sitting remains the same as per the tradition and norms of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament as per the directives issued by myself. What I would like to indicate is that this is our sitting, it's our parliament. Let us do so understanding that this is the parliament where the same privileges that the honorable members are entitled to apply. So I would like to ensure that we are cognizant of the fact that the rules of the House will be effected in the way that we are accustomed to. So we just need to make sure that we are consistent with the statutes as members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. You don't activate your microphone if you're not speaking, and you also do not activate your camera if you're not speaking, just for consistency, just for stability of the network. If you are a guest, please do not speak, do not activate your microphone. Thank you, honorable members. I was still explaining that we keep our microphones on mute until you have been recognized to speak. If there's a point of order, you indicate by show of hand or you indicate in the chat room, you will be recognized by the presiding officers. So at this point, I would like to recognize the honorable members and say that whatever that we're going to be discussing here throughout the deliberations, it is in ensuring that we keep the spirit of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament consistent with the rules of order, which is our standing rules, and the Western Cape Provincial Constitution, and of course the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Members, I would like to request the Honorable Brancase to please stand up. Thank you, Honorable Brancase, and thank you for honoring my request to join us in the House in person here today in the chamber. Pursuant to the adoption by the House of the report of the Conduct Committee on 10 September 2020, Honorable Brancase, on your failure to submit your members' disclosure forms on time as required in terms of the statute, I hereby reprimand you for breaching paragraph 11.2 of the Code of Conduct for members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. The honorable members have to abide by the principles, the rules and obligations set out in the Code of Conduct, and your failure to do so is a serious transgression. I trust that as members, you will learn. In fact, in this case, Honorable Brancase, I trust that as a member of this House, you learn from this experience and that will not be found to be on the contrary to what the rule is and to what the code of conduct prescribes to us as the honorable members. I hope that this is the last time, and it is not going to be a norm in future. Will you please take your seat, honorable member? Honorable members, thank you, and thank you, Honorable Brenkes. I would like to, as I indicated, that bring to the attention of all the honorable members that what I've just done now, I would like not to repeat it to either yourself, Honorable Brenkes, but I don't want to repeat it for any of the members. But we'll make sure that honorable members are reminded on time and that they are able to act decisively to protect the institution and to protect the code. I would like to recognize the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Notwithstanding the provisions of Rule 20, I move that precedence be given to the subject for discussion in the name of Honourable Brinkhuis.
Thank you, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable members, are there any objections? No objections? Agreed to. Honourable Brinkhuis, I recognize you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, our country is in a third wave with COVID infections. All provinces have reported an increase in the number of new infections. On the 1st of June, the province recorded just over 4,000 new infections. Honorable Speaker, the Strand community have been hit very hard with new infections. During the past week, 6 people have lost the battle against COVID-19, including the Imam of the Strand Jamia Masjid, Imam Hussein Rauda, rahimahullah. We call on the province to speed up the rollout of vaccinations, especially in areas where infections increased. In the case of Strand, all those who have succumbed to the COVID-19 virus were mostly people over 60 years old. Al-Jamaa wants to save lives and also recognizes that livelihoods are important, but lives are more important. The province must come out clear with how ready it is to prioritize saving lives or livelihoods amidst COVID-19. All our energies should not be focused only on rolling out the vaccines. Like HIV, people who are infected with COVID have become the new underclass and are stigmatized and discriminated against. Then there is the aspect of poverty. When there is a family member who have died, what social assistance are offered to families who have lost more than one member, and in many cases, both breadwinners? Does our schools offer psychological services to its staff and learners affected by COVID-19? The department should not pressurize heads of schools to send threatening letters to parents to send their children to school. Why is it that the department fails to assist schools forced to close due to COVID positive cases with online learning? The province is not reaching the masses on the ground with awareness on the importance to vaccinate. It is well and good to use Tani Evita Bezuidenhout, flooding social media, but what about the Tannies in the rural areas, the Tannies in the townships and on the Cape Flats, who do not hear about such important announcements? It is out of their reach to register online or SMS for vaccinations. There must be mass vaccinations on the ground. Use our stadiums for drive-through vaccinations, mosques and churches, halls, which are within the reach of our people. One of the most probable causes of spreading the virus is gatherings fueled by alcohol consumption. We have experienced and witnessed the positive effects of the ban of alcohol during the lockdown. We are disturbed by the DA's apprehension at the call by the South African Alcohol Policy Alliance for the restrictions on alcohol sales and a complete ban on advertising in order to save lives. The sales of alcohol is a major contributor to the rising spikes in COVID and place a tremendous strain on our healthcare system. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Brancase. Honorable members, I recognize the leader of the opposition, Honorable Dagmar.
Thank you very much, Speaker. The ANC welcomes this debate today on the state of the COVID-19 pandemic and the vaccination rollout in our province. But Speaker, we also want to sympathize with Honorable Brinkhays, whose original subject for discussion on the situation in Palestine was disallowed. This decision undermines freedom of speech, a key tenet of our constitution, and we urge Al-Jamaa to take this matter to the courts. We welcome the debate today because, in fact, it exposes this DA for what it is, a petty point-scoring party. Its continued adversarial approach towards national government during the COVID-19 state of disaster continues to expose it as a party which wants to demand one thing from national government, but is ineffective in rolling out the exact same programs in the province where it governs. The DA demands a vaccine rollout plan from national government, and we have yet to see a clear, time-bound program for the Western Cape. The DA-led provincial government made a huge noise about launching its own vaccination program and procuring their own vaccines. It even budgeted a whopping 800 million and more for these purposes. These announcements, Speaker, have come to absolutely nothing. Instead, Tani Evita is employed, who is now casting aspersions on former President Mbeki, while not saying, for instance, that you don't need a degree to get a vaccine. So the humor needs to be even-handed through the Speaker to Tani Evita. While the ANC welcomes the report on an average of 6,000 jabs per day in the last week and the proposed 12,000 jabs per day this week and an envisaged 24,000 jabs on average next week, we will be watching these figures closely to ensure that we expose the DA for what it is, a party of petty pointing and scoring political points. Again, launched with much fanfare by the Premier, the challenge of the Department of Health's dashboard on vaccinations has no indications of how many vaccinations and when and where these have been done. When we hear of an average of 6,000 a day last week, we want to know where these jabs have taken place exactly. Even worse still, the current stats on the dashboard show that only 45% of our elderly in the province have been registered. Nothing from this provincial government on how it will ensure more people over the age of 60 will be registered and get vaccinated. Speaker, only 6% of senior citizens over the age of 60 in Philippi have been registered. There are 15,500 people in Philippi over the age of 60. Only 9% of citizens over the age of 60 in Delft have registered. There are nearly 16,000 people over the age of 60 in Delft, but only 20% of over 60-year-olds in Blue Downs have registered. There are over 14,000 people over 60 in Blue Downs, 23% in Kraaifontein, and nearly 21,000 people over 60. And we may go on and on about registrations, never mind the actual vaccinations. It has taken the province 2 months to register only 50% of the over 60 population. It will take another 2 months to ensure that a considerable amount of people are registered, let alone vaccinated. The ANC remains deeply concerned about the registrations and rollout in areas outside the metro. For example, this week, we were alerted to the fact that on 1 June, a total of 129 people only were vaccinated in Riversdale. While this may certainly not be the total number of people vaccinated in Hessequa, the ANC remains concerned that there are over 1,700 people in Riversdale alone that are over the age of 60. We are further informed that the Riversdale Civic Centre, which was to be used as a vaccination site, will not be open today because of so-called vaccines not arriving. Yet all those vaccinated so far are only white senior citizens in the old age homes, not a single over 60-year-old in the historically disadvantaged communities. Seemingly, the strategy, which seems to be an ad hoc one made up as this provincial government goes along, is to vaccinate residents in old age homes and retirement villages. And while we welcome this, we have to ensure that in particularly our seniors from disadvantaged communities, we need help with registration, but also to actually have the vaccination sites in community centers and accessible venues. We were further informed that, and again I quote, the strategy is generic and aims to roll out the vaccination plan to all people across advantaged and disadvantaged areas. In other words, there is no recognition that those in old age homes and retirement villages mostly are those from the privileged and advantaged communities, mostly. In fact, they are even now being advantaged in being registered and vaccinated. Again, those privileged and previously advantaged have Department of Health officials coming to them. The poor must find their own way at this point in time to identify site. This must change, Speaker. Yet again, when things go wrong like this, the DA-led provincial government will quickly point out that it is a National Department of Health strategy, but glaring exposing that this province has no strategy of its own. While we welcome the 75 Cape access centres across the province to help residents register for free and zero rating of the EVDS portal on public Wi-Fi hotspots, we remain unconvinced, based on this provincial government's track record of service delivery in poorer areas, that priority is being given to this challenge. We will want to know how many registrations these 75 access centres are registering every day. While the ANC welcomes the fact that the challenge of queue jumping has been attended to, and we salute Dr. Kluti and his team, we look forward to ironing out all issues related to the electronic vaccination data system. Every life of our seniors is valuable, and what we want to see is practical, innovative steps to actually reach the seniors, especially those who don't have cars, who don't have access to Wi-Fi. Why can we not have our health workers actually going directly to the houses of the elderly in the disadvantaged communities? This is what we expect from a government that says it thinks out of the box, but continues to do things in the same old way. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable the Leader of the Opposition. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable the Minister of Health, Dr. Mbombo.
Thank you, Speaker. I will switch off my my video because I am on load sharing. Thank you very much. Speaker, let me first thank Member Brenkes from Al-Jama for sponsoring this debate. In as much as that Western Cape is not on third wave yet, technically speaking, yes, we are trailing behind the Free State, the Northwest, the Northern Cape, and Gauteng were already in the third wave. The year 2020 was probably the single most tumultuous year in the history of our country from a health system and broader population health perspective. Western Cape currently is in resurgence, and we already see some sporadic increase in some areas across the province. Hence, our first response is to reduce the size of a third wave strongly and quickly, and thus we can dramatically reduce the number of admissions and deaths. Having experienced two distinct waves and are now on the threshold of a potential third wave, all systems are ready. The Western Cape Cabinet approved our third wave advisory for a transparent, predefined triggers for a whole of society response in advance to reduce transmission and prepare health services. In that advisory, we find that we've got the first warning that is in yellow up to the second, the third warnings, and the red warnings when our health services capacity is threatened. And we use these landmarks such as daily case increase over time, overall positivity rate, percentage of hospitals with increased bed occupancy, usage of the oxygen, the high care intensive care beds occupancy. These triggers are accompanied by recommended restrictions, for example, like limited gatherings and the travel when it's in yellow warning, curfew and alcohol when in red, for example. Every intervention should be and is data-driven. Speaker, in summary of the overview, in case probably the members don't understand what we're talking about, the overview of the third wave response. One is about change community behavior to prevent infection, which is the non-pharmaceutical interventions will always be there as the first response, and also to re-emphasize so that you don't delay, we delay the further resurgence. Secondly, is the surveillance and the outbreak response, where we work with the municipality as well to test water wastage so that to ensure that we do know in advance if is there any outbreak in that area without necessarily probably the people who have went to test for themselves. In regard to the outbreak response, we've seen how we have responded swiftly, like when we found about some clusters like in weddings, after weddings, or the school hostels. 3 is the scale up of a health platform, COVID capacity, which I'll explain later, maintaining of the comprehensive services, because all other non-COVID cases, they are not on holiday. People still want to make use of our emergency and all other services. Safeguard and protect the well-being of healthcare workers is the 5th one. I can confirm that the Western Cape has enough bed capacity to respond to the resurgence in COVID-19 cases, and through previous investments during this pandemic, we can bring online additional bed capacity where and when needed. Throughout the first and second wave, we have ensured that our internal infrastructure can respond accordingly. This strategy of enhancing infrastructure at existing facilities means that the facilities remain on standby. For example, all the field hospitals except ICC are still operational. And also some of them are attached to the existing hospital besides the Bracken Gate, the Sonstral and the Lendegeer and Mitchells Plain hospitals. Also, whilst always a last resort, we remain ready to de-escalate the service and create additional acute care capacity when in need at a short notice. We also continue to closely monitor the usage of beds across our province through a centrally coordinated and professional operation known as Bed Bureau Management System. Currently, our bed occupancy is 83% for general and 12% so far for the COVID. The first and second wave showed us the healthcare workers play a critical role in our response to pandemic. Hence, it is crucial that we have to extend the contracts for the most critical posts. We have also established a recruitment database for additional COVID nurses and medical staff that will allow us to bring online additional healthcare workers capacity. Psychosocial and wellness support for staff is available at their doorstep. A large proportion of health workers have already vaccinated. Speaker, this means that we should be able to operate at a greater capacity. At this point, Speaker, because I have to respond on the vaccination part of it. As a country, we need urgent mass production of vaccinations at a reasonable price. Also, the availability in the mass vaccination without interrupting the program. The start, stop, and go approach that may find ourselves into may create vaccine hesitancy if there's a short supply of vaccination that we see as it's coming up. At this point, the vaccine is the solution to protect the system whilst also opening up the economy. Speaker, I'm proud to inform you that the Western Cape is on track with the vaccination. We have vaccinated about 150,000 plus. Our approach on gradual increase and scaling up will ensure equitable access to reach out and prevent start, stop, and go. Just to respond to Member Cameroon about the equity. Our objective is to vaccinate about 12,000 and then move to to 60,000 and then to 120,000 every week throughout. About the Tanisaris who are in deep rural farming or also even in the backyard or Ishwek Dallas, we make sure that they've got access in regard to our registration drive that has been taken all over all the provinces. Our centers where they could be especially being assisted by the families, the e-centers in the rural areas, and also the libraries in the metro are available. We have been to, because Member Dagmar talks about also again the issue of the inaccessibility. We have been to the Imizamo Yetu, we have engaged with the churches in Kailicha, we have been to the Nomzamo in Strand, we have been in Durbanville, Morningside to the farm workers. Tomorrow I'll be in Bella, next week we're in the Central Karoo to ensure that we're leaving no one behind. And also, we have also accommodated for those people who can be able to be walk-ins, where we create the percentage. For example, we were in West Bank, in Malmesbury, where they could be able, although they might have the 400 allocation of the doses, at least for them, they can take 70 who are those who have already got the SMS, and then they can take 30% who are the walk-ins. The members are talking earlier about Itani Vita. They are forgetting that our first people to vaccinate is the Bishop Tutu and Umamulia and also others. But we don't want to create a situation, but each and every personality or celebrity is being celebrated, because there are many of those, the 104-year-olds from Delft, who have been also part of the being the people who need to be vaccinated, the 100-year-olds from the Guguletu, and everywhere they form part of the vaccination. I'm proud to inform you that yesterday we exceeded this target and vaccinated 14,744, in as much as that, as we were saying, that we want to go to 60,000 vaccinations per week, and then we go to the 120,000. Speaker, having said that, I still maintain, yes.
Time, Honorable Minister.
The non-pharmaceutical interventions, they are very crucial whilst we are waiting for the whole of the community to be vaccinated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's important to stick to our time, but I understand the Minister was sharing something that we all want to hear, but thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you. May I request the Honorable Makamba Bokia to address the House?
Thank you very much, Speaker. And thanks to the Minister. And I also want to commend her on the statement that she has mentioned that yesterday she's exceeded some target in terms of the vaccines. So I want to commend her on that. Number one, with the Western Cape province not far away from entering into the third wave of COVID-19 infections, the only way to describe the planning and preparedness of this eventuality of their part is by using the word failure. For starters, this is the province which failed to procure and acquire an adequate amount of vaccines relative to its population, which the Premier promised will be done before the winter season. It has now transpired that such a promise was nothing other than a political statement aimed at mocking our people, as everything in the eyes of this government is nothing but a joke. It was very clear from the Premier's keynote address in the SOPA early this year that the province does not have a proactive plan against the possible third wave of COVID-19 infections. This became apparent when he mentioned that the province will use the tried and tested hotspot approach, which we all know failed under the first and second wave of infections and did not produce any results other than being a reactionary, useless strategy. This is a government that does not inspire confidence in all levels, as it has failed to deliver on its transitional residential housing project, which was aimed at dissatisfaction of overcrowded informal settlements in order to mitigate against the spread of the COVID-19. The poor people of this province continue to live in poverty and hunger as the province continue to fail in creating enough job opportunities following a huge loss of jobs since last year as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaker, with COVID-19 third wave right at the door, the economy will continue to be affected negatively, and unfortunately, more people will continue losing jobs, and this will be as a result of lack of proper planning on the side of the government. Moreover, as we enter the winter season, a part of our population which has been totally neglected by this government is the poor people in the streets. The government is not extending a helping hand to these vulnerable people in trying to make sure that they are properly accommodated in shelters, vaccinated and well-fed. A government which fails to help the poorest of the poor is nothing but a failed government. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Makamba Bokia. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Minister Mania.
Thank you, Speaker. There, of course, is no doubt that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on both the lives and livelihoods in the Western Cape, but also, of course, across South Africa. Some people think that we have to choose between saving lives and saving livelihoods, but that, in my view, is a false choice, because we have to save lives and we have to save livelihoods in the Western Cape. We have, from the start of this year, identified a possible third wave as being a risk to economic recovery, which is why in my budget speech I announced that as part of our 2.17 billion rand war chest to defeat COVID-19 in the Western Cape, we had allocated 832 million rand to respond to a possible third wave, which would be spent variously on expanding testing, on providing personal protective equipment, and of course on ensuring sufficient supply of oxygen and critical care capacity in the Western Cape. Premier Alan Wendy's commitment to procure vaccines was not a failure, as the Honourable Makamba Botja suggests, but in fact a response to a failure by national government who woke up too late and began to procure vaccines only towards the end of last year, which has compromised the vaccine rollout program and compromised our ability to save lives and save livelihoods in the Western Cape. Now, Speaker, we have also done more than any other province in South Africa to support businesses, especially small businesses, during the COVID-19 pandemic, so that we can save lives and that we can save the economy in the Western Cape. We've taken a number of measures. We've set up a COVID-19 content center. We've set up the COVID-19 support finder to help businesses navigate and access the many financial relief packages available. Our red tape reduction unit has assisted businesses navigate the complex regulatory landscape, and we've assisted businesses implement COVID-19 workplace safety protocols across the Western Cape to ensure that employees and customers notify us when businesses are not following the necessary health guidelines to stop the spread of COVID-19. Speaker, to ensure that we continue to save lives and save livelihoods, we must continue to make decisions that are evidence-based. We must apply, I think, a differential approach to restrictions that are proportional to the threat. Provinces are experiencing surges in infections at different times. Applying blanket restrictions across the country is a blunt approach, which of course will have detrimental effects to business. If restrictions are too heavy-handed, or they lack common sense, or if restrictions are implemented too early or held in place for longer than necessary, this can of course have a devastating effect on the economy. And of course, nothing illustrates this more than the restrictions on alcohol, which of course is a prime suspect in the killing of nearly 119,000 jobs in the agricultural sector in the Western Cape. Speaker, the fact is that in the end, economic recovery, and I've said this before, depends on vaccinating as many people as fast as possible, because with more jabs, there will ultimately be more jobs. We have to mobilize every institution to support our vaccine registration and vaccine rollout, which then
Honorable Minister, I'm sure it's the load shedding story. We are unable to hear you now. Your system froze there. We'll give you a minute and see if it improves. If not, then we go to the next speaker for now. All right. Honorable members, I'm going to request that we move to the next speaker. I now recognize Honorable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, with only 1% of our population fully vaccinated, our biggest risk right now is pandemic fatigue. South Africans, like the people of every other country in the world, have endured an unprecedented and unplanned cultural change imposed upon us in order to save our very existence. The health protocols have prevented natural human instincts to connect with other human beings physically and socially. We may no longer shake hands or hug when we greet. We must keep our distance from each other. We must avoid gatherings for social events, cultural events, religious events, and even to do our jobs. We must cover half of our faces at all times with a mask, and we clean and sanitize our hands on entering everywhere. On top of the loss of our cultural and social habits, we've seen a decimation of businesses and jobs. Storefronts boarded up, favorite restaurants, bars, or taverns shut down, businesses teetering on the brink of insolvency or liquidation, family, friends, colleagues unemployed. Speaker, we entered our summer season, the season which many industries and businesses were relying on to recoup some of their lost revenue, with another lockdown as the second wave swept across our country. Fatigue and complacency played a major role in the magnitude and severity of the second wave. The third wave is looming, and we are under slightly adjusted restrictions which allow most businesses to trade. We must all dig deep and not allow complacency and fatigue to overcome us. If our third wave is not contained, we could face another shutdown of our economy and our lives. The virus is transmitted by our behavior. As hard as it is to maintain the health protocols and adhere to the lockdown rules, we implore the people of the Western Cape to rise to the occasion so that we may mitigate the loss of life and the loss of livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Heron. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Philander.
Speaker, these are the words of President Ramaphosa when announcing lockdown last year. And I quote, "We expect all South Africans to act in the interest of the South African nation and not in their own selfish interest. We will act strongly against any attempts at corruption and profiteering of this crisis," end quote. If the president was serious about corruption in this country and actually delivering to the nation, he would have asked Minister Mkhize, for one, to step aside or be fired. Instead, the president is in conversation and at the same time finding claims serious and disturbing. The nation has got no trust in the ANC to do what is right for this country, and the president is found wanting on his promises. This is another ANC-sponsored promise and ANC-delivered lie. More than 2.2 billion worth of corrupt PPE deals have had to be investigated, straight out of the pockets of taxpayers and at the height of the pandemic, where many lost their livelihoods and lives. Yet again, residents had to sit back and watch state coffers be plundered. Honorable Dugmore, through you, Speaker, this stolen 2.2 billion could have vaccinated over 3.5 million South Africans against COVID-19. The president's pledge, like the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, was nothing more than a talk show. The ANC-led National Department of Health is once again unable to account for a 150 million rand tender as party cadres and family members allegedly appear to be the beneficiaries of the Digital Vibes contract. Speaker, this ironic tenderpreneurship of a communication program by the ANC comes at a time where residents don't know the where and when to receive their vaccines. And it doesn't stop there. The pandemic and corruption opportunities compete equally for the ANC's attention. Under another essential service, we note how the SAPS was found to have looted 1.6 billion from the state coffer. Speaker, we know that in the Western Cape, we've been begging for additional policing resources for years to fight gangsterism, another pandemic plaguing our communities. But instead of using these funds to govern well and provide for the safety needs of all, residents in Western Cape received a temporary deployment of police officers in response to a long-standing concern. Speaker, the lack of boots on the ground has also threatened lives and livelihoods in the Western Cape. It is gravely inaccurate for opposition members to paint the provincial government as uncaring towards the poor. There are gaps in national competencies in the province that are filled by the provincial government nonetheless, such as supplementation through the Western Cape Safety Plan, the mitigation strategy to procure vaccines where national failed, and a supporting mechanism to ensure registration for COVID-19 vaccines when the national system proves out of touch. Speaker, the Western Cape government is capable, but the extent of corruption comes at a cost of every hard-working South African who pay taxes diligently, but receive mere talk shops on promise to end corruption and how funds will be recovered instead of good governance. All this during a state of disaster nogal. Speaker, we would be able to save both lives and livelihoods in this country had we put a stop to the mismanagement of the public purse for years under the ANC's leadership. In closing, now that words like COVID-19, lockdown, and stay safe have become household terms, we have to drive home the message that vaccination saves both lives and livelihoods most effectively. But we cannot do so if the funds meant to support these vital government programs are handed out to a notoriously well-connected few of those in green and yellow. Speaker, there is simply not enough urgency from the national government on the only effective way to save lives and livelihoods. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Philander. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, on Sunday night past, we saw that the President announced the country is returning to adjusted level 2. This is in response to the provinces of Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Free State and Northwest experiencing a third wave of infections. Now, Speaker, we know that what happened previously, that South Africa is the worst hit country on the continent with 1.6 million cases and 56,711 reported deaths. We are heading to the third wave. It's believed to be in the next couple of weeks. And we heard about the restrictions placed on the province. And yet again, I want to agree that blanket restrictions is not advisable for the country. And blanket restrictions hurt the economy. We know that certain businesses, especially small businesses, are still struggling to recover. And from the ACDP side, we want the president and this province to say to the president that, not one glove fits all, and that we must think, yes, of protecting lives, but we must also think of protecting livelihoods. And yet again, we must ask the people of the Western Cape to adhere to the safety protocols. And we as elected members, as public office bearers, we are urged, we had a meeting yesterday, we are urged to go out and ask people to register to be vaccinated. The one concern was that in certain areas, especially your disadvantaged areas and communities, people did not register. So in closing, Speaker, our plea as public office bearers must be to go out and tell people to register to vaccinate. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. Honorable members, due to the connectivity challenges in the Minister Mania's address, I'm going to request that he now uses the opportunity. Are you back, Honorable Mania?
Honorable Speaker, I am, and I appreciate the opportunity to re-engage in the debate.
Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Before you proceed, is there a point of order, honorable members?
Honorable Speaker.
Who is the honorable member speaking?
Honorable Nkondlo, my apologies to interject to the Minister, Speaker. I just want to understand, I think between the connectivity issues, I'm not sure, I didn't hear the ANC being called into the debate, unless I'm making the mistake between the connectivity. After the minister, I think you then called the next speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Nkonzo. There is a speakers list, honorable members, and the order that I've read is the nature of the speakers list before myself at this point in time. The ANC was Honorable Dagmo, and the next speaker from the ANC will be Honorable Van Vogel, and that will be the 11th speaker in terms of the speakers list. I hope that clarifies the point.
Point of order
Thank
as well,
you.
Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. I see there's a point of order, honorable the leader of the opposition.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Not to belabor the point, but my point of order is whether the same rules here in the legislature would apply in a committee where a member has had connectivity problems. In other words, whether they would still be allowed to speak. I'll give you the example that yesterday we had a meeting scheduled from 1 until 2 in a committee, and then I had connectivity, and by the time we came back, I got back into the connection, and even though we were half an hour away from 2 o'clock, the chairperson in that particular situation did not want us to actually contribute to the meeting. So do the same rules apply in a committee, like say where now Honorable Mainir has had to leave the meeting or lost connectivity? I just want to check that. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Dagmo. We have been in the House accommodating members who would be lost and come back. That's the principle that I've been following. In fact, both myself and the Deputy Speaker as presiding officers, we have been consistent in that regard. What happens in the space of the committees, the members of a committee must make that determination at the time, but the rules are clear that if you, especially with the fact that we're connecting virtually and some members may be in a hybrid space, there's no perfect environment when we are connecting virtually. So the chairperson and the committee may determine how they manage that situation. I hope that that clarifies the point. May I then, honorable members, recognize the Minister of Economic Opportunities, Tourism and Finance, Honorable Mania.
Thank you, Speaker. Before I lost connectivity, I was saying that in the end, economic recovery depends on vaccinating as many people as fast as possible, because of course, with more jabs, there will be more jobs in the Western Cape. And in order to achieve that goal, Speaker, I think we have to mobilize every institution to support not only vaccine registration, but also the vaccine rollout. And so the question then is, what is the Honourable Cameron Dagmo doing himself to register plus 60s? Surely rather than delivering suboptimal speeches, he should be rolling up his sleeves and registering our plus 60s for vaccinations in the Western Cape. Now, Speaker, to achieve the goal of vaccinating as many people as fast as possible, we have in recent weeks been engaging extensively with the private sector to build a strong partnership to increase the take-up and rollout of vaccines in the Western Cape. And to this end, I've hosted a number of engagements with business leaders from multiple sectors and have followed up with one-on-one engagements. And I'm pleased to say that there is extensive support and buy-in from the private sector to support the rollout of vaccinations in the Western Cape. Businesses want to partner with us to distribute our vaccine campaign messaging in workplaces. Businesses are partnering with us to set up vaccination sites at their business premises. And of course, businesses will be partnering to help people, especially the elderly, to register on the EVDS system. But of course, there is a significant gap which has emerged in these engagements. And while it's a credit to national government and to Business for South Africa, that they have worked together to enable private sector workplace vaccination sites. The system to register businesses is still too complex. Businesses are frustrated. They want to help, but they are being asked to navigate a spider's web of regulations which are being inefficiently implemented. And we think this requires an urgent review to simplify and clarify so that we can speed up the process. An excellent example of where businesses are already assisting with the vaccination rollout is the ShopRite checkers, who are working with the City of Cape Town to raise awareness about vaccinations at stores at SASSA payout days and to help the elderly register for their vaccines. It's an excellent initiative where all the role players, including the private sector, are working with government to ensure the vaccine rollout happens as quickly as possible and reaches as many people as possible in every corner of the Western Cape. In the meantime, I hope that each of us does everything we can to flatten the curve and delay the peak of a potential third wave in the Western Cape. Please wear your masks, sanitize, practice social distancing, avoid gatherings as far as possible for the next couple of weeks, because together we can beat the COVID-19 pandemic in the Western Cape. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Menia. Honorable members,
Point of order.
Is what's your point of order, Honorable Dagmo?
Thank you. The point of order is Honorable Mackenzie clapped his hands. My understanding of the rules for these virtual and hybrid sessions is that members are not supposed to interject or clap their hands. Could you just rule on that point, please, Speaker? Because I would also like to clap my hands, especially when Al Jamaa had spoken, and now when Honourable Member Vin Vogel speaks, I would also like to clap my hands, but I'm having to restrain myself. I'm finding it quite difficult.
Thank you, Honourable the Leader of the Opposition. I was inclined to believe that you wanted to clap hands for Honourable Menia. Thank you, Honourable the Leader of the Opposition. Honourable members, yes, it is correct. Honourable Mackenzie, will you please desist from that and withdraw that hand?
Withdraw your clapping of hands. Clap your face.
Honourable members, Honourable Mackenzie has withdrawn the clapping. Thank you, that's very important. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Dagmo. Honourable members, I now recognize Honourable Fernandez, the Minister of Social Development. Minister.
Honourable Speaker, good afternoon. And am I audible to the House?
Yes, you are loud and clear, Honourable Minister.
I am experiencing connectivity problems, so I am connecting on my phone. Honourable Speaker, honourable members, as the Western Cape faces a third wave of COVID-19, we must draw lessons and insights from the first and second wave we have experienced. It's important to review the lessons learned so we can better manage future disasters in a way that reduces the socio-economic, employment, medical, and humanitarian impact, amongst others, on society. One thing that has underpinned all our efforts in mitigating the impact of the pandemic is how we as a society have come together in the spirit of Ubuntu to provide humanitarian aid to the most vulnerable. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a challenging period for many South Africans, with many losing their jobs, relying on TERS or 350 social relief of distress grant, and many citizens requiring food aid and relief. This is confirmed by the Stats SA recently published quarterly labour force survey for the first quarter of 2021. Throughout this challenging period, Honourable Speaker, civil society, the NPO sector, CBO, faith-based sector, and many individuals, ordinary South Africans, have stepped forward to assist with providing much-needed humanitarian aid. The Provincial Department of Social Development has acknowledged the need for humanitarian aid since the initial announcement of the Disaster Management Act and introduced a series of measures to protect the well-being and livelihoods of residents in the Western Cape, in particular, the most vulnerable. Although SASSA remains the lead agency charged with social support to the poor in terms of Chapter 3 of the Social Assistance Act, I recently announced that DSD had made an additional 25 million rand available for food relief to assist the many vulnerable who find themselves without any form of state support as a result of the termination of the special 350 COVID SRD grant on the 30th of April 2021. The department currently provides daily nutritional support via 104 community nutritional development centers, and currently funded sites have also been strengthened to address food insecurity within vulnerable communities. The department has upscaled our footprint. We have partnered with NGOs to complement existing service delivery by providing support to 353 community kitchens. We have also partnered with an established service provider to pilot a voucher system to 250 identified community kitchens to provide food. We will assess the need for food aid on an ongoing basis. Honourable Speaker, to this day, the uncaring ANC national government has left thousands of vulnerable citizens waiting for their temporary disability grant to be paid, which is sad and distressing to say the least. In line with addressing lives and livelihoods, we also focus on our older persons in old age homes. We will continue to ensure that the COVID-19 vaccination and registration is rolled out and implemented across our 300 homes across the province. We will continue to provide the following support amongst others. We monitor and support outbreaks in old age homes on a weekly basis. We monitor COVID-19 registrations of client and caregivers in old age homes on a weekly basis. We will facilitate the deep cleaning of old age homes with a focus on homes in vulnerable communities and hotspot areas, and provide additional relief staff if and when needed. Honourable Speaker, I must thank the management team, the carers, the staff, the officials, older family members for their ongoing commitment and devotion in helping us to contain the spread of the virus at all old age homes. We are grateful and appreciative of all your efforts during this challenging time. Honourable Speaker, in terms of ECDs, the department continues to work closely with registered ECD programs to ensure that the necessary measures are in place to protect both practitioners and young children at facilities. We have established monitoring plans to ensure that there is adherence to the health and safety protocols, and will also continue to provide additional support in terms of PPE. Of the 496 million rand received by National Treasury, the Provincial Department of Social Development received 53 million. We contacted an intermediary organization to assist with the processing of payments and the verification of the early childhood development stimulus relief in this province. I am deeply concerned, Honourable Speaker, that of the 3,159 applications made from the Western Cape ECD sector, the Provincial Department has received a total of 793 approved applications from National DST. These were the applicants that passed the eligibility criteria set by the National Department of Social Development. Honourable Speaker, in light of the low numbers of approved applicants in the province, I have written to the National Minister of Social Development to reopen the applications for the Early Childhood Development Employment Stimulus Relief Fund, as the industry has been decimated with women bearing the brunt of job losses. Whilst it is important that we recognise the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are duty-bound as a society to acknowledge that it is also Child Protection Week this week. And I would want to alert the House that whilst we have less contact with each other due to COVID-19, we have a responsibility as a whole of society to remain vigilant, to take the signs of abuse seriously, and report all pleas for help by vulnerable women, children, and community at large immediately. I wish to use this opportunity, Honourable Speaker, to appeal to each and every resident across this province who is helping us in the fight against the ongoing abuse, neglect, and murder of women and children, but also to reiterate our commitment as a department to working with all spheres of government and with the whole of society to safeguard and protect our women and children 365 days of the year as the third wave affects us all. Let's unite in the spirit of Ubuntu to support the most vulnerable. To the many South Africans who are freely assisting with vaccine registration, humanitarian aid, taking care of our women and children, and saving lives and livelihoods, amongst others, I say thank you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, the next speaker is Honourable Murray. I now recognize the Honourable Murray, FF+.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Good day, members. Speaker, South African stats show that nearly 50% of our youth are unemployed. And reports by our own Department of Health and the Minister has stated that the highest recovery rates from COVID-19 is also to be found amongst our young people. Now, wisdom and logic requires of us to take a step back and to think. And by thinking, we will give priority to vaccinating all persons between the ages 45 and older simultaneously, instead of only prioritizing 60 years and older, because this will greatly contribute to saving the lives of our most vulnerable and simultaneously saving and stabilizing our economy. It makes good sense. I've objected in the committee meetings when the department announced that they were going to give priority to prisoners to be vaccinated. I even wrote to the Premier Windy objecting, and I said it doesn't make sense that law-abiding citizens must stand in the queue behind offenders. And this was changed. But I still maintain, I now ask that persons 45 years and over 60 must be classified jointly as a top priority, and vaccines should be made available to them if they request to be vaccinated. We are in a crisis, and this crisis is driven by people at national level that doesn't have a license to drive the vaccine mobile unit. He hasn't got a taxi license. They're driving us into the ground. Regulations are weak legislation. Regulations only come into effect when ministers or the cabinet doesn't have an answer. They give carte blanche. And I want us to escape.
Honourable Murray, your time is up.
Can I just read, sir? It escapes parliamentary oversight and needs continuing legal scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Murray. I've realized if I say we must conclude, it disrupts the honourable members. They can't hear what I'm saying. They think I'm objecting. So I just decided to simply tell you when the time is almost up. May I just clarify something before we conclude with the debate for the honourable members' attention? And that is also assisting so that there's consistency here when the presiding officers make certain decisions. Our virtual sessions in a normal environment, as we have been conducting them, we do not take responsibility as presiding officers of the members who get cut off for any other reason, either than when there is load shedding. I think we've done so in the past, and consistent with that, we've got scheduled load shedding, which we don't control as this parliament, but it does affect members who are not in the house. So outside a scheduled load shedding, it would not make sense for us as this house, and of course, presiding officers, to now take responsibility for members who have poor connectivity based on the location which they could control. So that is what we would like to, I would like to make clear so that there is no confusion in that regard. Hence, I've allowed earlier on the Honorable Minister Menier and any other member will be allowed and has been allowed in the past based on that, except on a normal period. I now recognize Honorable Batman, the new Chief Whip of the, I said the new Deputy Chief Whip. I now recognize the ANC, Honorable Dagmo. Now I recognize the ANC. That is Honorable Van Vochen. I don't want to be accused that I did not give the ANC. Honorable Nkondlo, it's now Honorable Van Vochen. Over to you, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Speaker. Dis teleurstellend dat member Philander heel wat afwyk van die onderwerp. Dis nie wat die inwoners van die Weskaap wil hoor nie. Die inwoners wil hoor hoe die vaccination rollout program bestuur gaan word om sodoende lewens te red. En nie net vir die rykes nie, maar ook vir die armes. Speaker, the country continues to observe a sustained increase of COVID-19 cases over the past few weeks. Yesterday, the country recorded 5,782 cases, the highest number of new infections in more than 4 months, indicating that we have officially entered the third wave. The National Institute for Communicable Diseases confirmed that 4 provinces have already entered a third wave of COVID-19 infections: Northern Cape, Free State, Northwest, and Gauteng. The indicator for the NICD is if the 7-day moving average of case incidence has reached 30% of the previous peak in provinces. Speaker, as we continue to witness the sustained increase in case incidence across all provinces, the Western Cape is not spared. The province has a total of 295,047 cases with 278,897 recoveries to date and 11,823 deaths. The number of active cases currently stands on 4,327 and expected to increase sharply as we approach the third wave. Speaker, the majority of these cases are concentrated in 5 sub-districts in the metro: the Eastern sub-district with 411 cases, the Northern with 436 cases, Tygerberg with 456, the Southern with 493, and the Western sub-district with 628 cases. In the non-metro regions, the Drakenstein is leading with 195 cases, while Saldanha has 147 cases and Matsikama with 137 cases. These are the same trend that we observe in the first 2 waves. The spreads starts in these other sub-districts before they rapidly spread in Khayelitsha, Klipfontein, and Mitchells Plain. As the third wave fast approaches, it is a cause of serious concern that no progress has been with regards to the de-densification of overcrowded areas, which was announced by a National Minister of Human Settlement early last year. It is a known fact that highly dense areas make it impossible for people to observe public health regulation promulgated to combat the spread of the infectious COVID-19 pandemic. Speaker, in response to the question posed by the ANC regarding progress made on these projects, MEC Simmers confirmed that in the metro, the areas of Danune, Greater Kosovo, and the airport were identified for reblocking projects, forming part of the province's rapid informal settlement support and upgrade program. The budget for these areas are Danune 175 million, Greater Kosovo 500 million, in the airport area is 3.136 billion. Speaker, in terms of progress, Danune is currently undergoing planning and packaging, and Greater Kosovo is at an advanced stage with land acquisition. concluded for phase 1. The development framework was prepared for the entire development, expected to yield 10,500 housing opportunities. All planning approvals are expected in 2022 and 2023. The airport is expected to yield 8,000 housing opportunities. Construction has started in September 2020 for a portion of the development, and completion expected in 2023. Speaker, what is clear from the above explanation is that no de-densification will take place in the province until 2023. Moreover, the informal settlement that were established during lockdown all do not have access to water and basic sanitation. This is a huge risk and needs to be urgently addressed. Speaker, the pandemic is well within the second year, which make it difficult for people to adhere to the safety protocols. I want to appeal to our people to remain vigilant, especially now. We have to work together to ensure that we all survive the third wave so we could get vaccinated. We can beat the third wave by practicing good hand hygiene, wearing masks all time, maintaining social distancing, and trying by all means to limit social interaction as much as possible. The people must stay at home and only go out when it is absolutely necessary. Our vaccine program started slow and experienced several setups, but we are now building momentum and scaling up the vaccine rollout. En ek wil sê, Suid-Afrika word wêreldwyd geprys vir die rollout van hoe ons die pandemic hanteer. As at 2nd June, over 1.1 million people were vaccinated in the country. Every member of society has a role to play in combating COVID-19, especially in remaining patient with the lockdown restrictions and adhering to safety protocol. We need to assist our elderly to register for vaccination. So help ons ou mense asseblief. I am extremely troubled with low numbers of registration in rural communities and other poor working class communities in the metro. We have been saying the province must equip the community healthcare workers with the right resources and allow them to assist elderly with registrations in their homes. Not at libraries, in their homes. Now is not the time to be playing politics and the blame game, nor is it going to be of any help to be defensive in hiding mistakes that have been committed. We all need to work in, I think, to minimize the impact of the third wave on both life and livelihood. We welcome the announcement by the President to move the country to adjust lockdown level 2 and the key considerations that were given to the economic activities. We must all support these efforts and encourage our people to respect them. I wish to appeal to the Premier and his government to consider the expenditure for provincial vaccine rollout. The funds could be put to better use in improving conditions at our facilities and addressing staff shortages. The department must end over-reliance on seasonal workers. They are costly and unsustainable. I wish to thank our frontline workers, particularly the nurses, doctors, and all healthcare workers for carrying the country and province on their shoulders. Indeed, they are our heroes and heroines. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van Vogel. Honorable members, I now recognize the Deputy Chief Whip of the Democratic Alliance. Welcome to the new role, Honorable Bartman, and good luck as you proceed in your endeavors. This is now an opportunity to address us, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the congratulatory words. Speaker, I have to start to say that it is quite a sad day and a sad week also for us as a country, that we also, during COVID-19, also have to go through load shedding, because it's not just this parliament that is affected by load shedding and its work and its committees. And some of us have to drive to different areas and different neighborhoods in order to log on for the sitting. But that there are other people in other industries where their equipment won't necessarily come back online, and Eskom is not going to pay for that. But Speaker, I first would like to thank Member Brinkhuis for bringing this debate. It is a very, very important debate, especially since we are about to go into the third wave nationally, and some provinces have already entered into the third wave, essentially. But, Speaker, there are some matters that needs to be addressed that speakers in this House have brought up. One of the issues has been that Member Brinkhuis, there's been an allegation that he could not put his original motion. But Member Brinkhuis was given an opportunity to amend the motion he put forward. And Speaker, when there's no substantial international relations or global affairs competencies within the legislature, and when the motion is written to ask that particular House for a decision which that House is not mandated to make, then we have to be allowed to amend such motions so that they are put properly. And this was afforded to Member Brinkhuis. Further, Speaker, in terms of the questions regarding the rollout being late, we have to also ask ourselves in the beginning, when we as a country were supposed to be part of the national global vaccine rollout programs, when we had to indicate how many vaccines we need, when we have companies in South Africa who also work on vaccines, but we were so late, the vaccines were ordered and they were not refrigerated and were expired. South Africa was one of the last countries to indicate how much vaccines we needed and to commit money. We had to go and get money from other funds that we weren't supposed to be buying the vaccines from in order to get vaccines because of how late we are. And Speaker, I just want to say, I find it reeks of racism and sexism and isms that I'm not even sure has a name, when people want to attack people such as Tannie Vita Besaidenout, but they won't attack celebrities and persons in our community such as Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And they're all celebrities and they're all helping us to encourage people to take the vaccine, and they're not being paid to help encourage people to take the vaccine. So I don't know if there are names for some of the other isms, but it reeks of these many isms. And Speaker, in terms of Speaker, may I be protected, please? May I continue?
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Honorable Dagmo, as the leader of the opposition, I would like you to help me manage this House so that there is no disturbances. We need to have the decorum that is necessary to carry us through, and I hope I can count on your support. May I request the Honorable Brad Bartman to proceed?
Thank you, Speaker. But like I said, if we're going to be asking these questions of Tannie Vita Besaidenout, then the ANC opposition must also ask these questions of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and none of them are being paid to assist us. They're doing this because they love their communities. Speaker, there is currently, in terms of vaccines, there's no dashboard in KZN, there's no dashboard in Gauteng, there's no dashboard in any other ANC province in terms of how COVID is being regulated. And we cannot simply believe in other provinces that the ANC does what they say. So in the Western Cape, what we did is we have actually a COVID dashboard so that people on the ground can keep us accountable. And we need to ensure the vaccines are rolled out responsibly in a calm fashion so that people do not also fight over vaccines. And in case some of the opposition members do not know yet, because perhaps they're not attending the meetings or coming late to them online as well, is the Cape Access Centre is actually also going door to door in the Overberg regions and to bring vaccines to the farming area for the registration for the vaccines. And I would like to thank the member Makamba Bocha for indicating that actually how well the Western Cape has been doing in terms of the vaccine rollout, especially yesterday when it has been exceeded in that regard. And when you look at the numbers, members such as Member Winvogel was only using the actual numbers, but they don't acknowledge that as a percentage, the Western Cape registration is ahead of the other provinces. And Speaker, there was an allegation that we are paying for digital vibes. I don't know where that comes from, but no money is being spent on digital vibes. And further, I also like to thank the member Makamba Bocha for congratulating the Minister of Health. But I would also like her to be consistent in what she says in this House. Because in the previous sitting, when Minister Mania gave the exact same answers to her questions, which she repeats, he gave it again today. And then she wants to come and say that there's no plan to protect the economy and to protect jobs. But in the previous sitting, she congratulated Minister Mania on record in this House for the exact same information that he gave today. And in terms of business support, the tourism industry has been seeing a very slow recovery, particularly and over the Easter weekend, we saw that the domestic market in the Western Cape led the way, and there was a 65% recovery of domestic arrivals at Cape Town International Airport. And some of the business support we've been giving in this province is we have set up a COVID-19 content center in partnership with Wesgro and the City of Cape Town, which provides support and advice to businesses during the pandemic and help with interpreting legal requirements. We have a COVID support finder, which was set up by the Western Cape government to help businesses navigate and access financial relief packages. And if any youth person is watching this debate, please go to supportbusiness.co.za or any company that is looking in order to see how to access these respective financial relief packages. There was a Jump app that was launched, which you can go to bizjump.co.za. You can download it on an Android phone, you can download it on an iPhone, and this essentially is a one-stop shop for existing and potential business owners, which gives them access to resources to start, to scale, to grow your business. And in terms of the red tape reduction unit, it assisted entrepreneurs to start a business where they can register and work with them regarding red tape issues. They supported 250 ECD centers to safely comply with regulations and reopen. The Western Cape government launched a COVID-19 relief fund. 38 million rand has been distributed to 249 small businesses and saved 2,000 jobs. We launched the Community Economic Recovery Project, which distributed 3 million rand to 225 community kitchens for food relief, and this was spent at over 122 local spaza shops. The Western Cape government launched a Tourism Product Development Fund, which distributed 5 million rand in order to support new and existing product and experiences. And
the Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Speaker. But in this Western Cape, the DA does care for the people. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Bartman. Honorable members, that concludes the debate. Thank you very much to all of you for participating and for respecting the rules of the House. At this point, we're moving to interpellations, and the first interpellation is by Honorable Mvimbi to the Minister of Transport and Public Works. And at this point, I would like to congratulate the Honorable Minister Mitchell on your assignment and of course the appointment as the Minister of Transport and Public Works, and wish you all of the very best. We've seen that you've been baptized by the different riots, taxi operations and strikes, violence. Good luck. And this is now the opportunity to address the House. Thank you, Honorable Minister. It's now your turn.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, with your permission, and in the interest of connectivity, would it be in order if I switch off my camera?
Yes, you are more than welcome, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, firstly, let me start off by saying that there is no position of the provincial traffic head in the Department of Transport and Public Works, but rather the position of Chief Director, Traffic Management. Speaker, the answer to the question is no. I was advised by the Directorate Employee Relations, located in the Corporate Service Center of the Department of the Premier, that a decision to suspend an employee must be based on all the applicable legal prescripts, which in terms of Section 2.7, subsection 2 of the SMS Handbook provides as follows. The employer may suspend an employee on full pay or transfer a member on full pay if the member is alleged to have committed a serious offense and the employer believes that the presence of a member at the workplace might jeopardize any investigation into the alleged misconduct or endanger the well-being or safety of any person or state property. Speaker, I at this point want to emphasize that the authority to suspend lies with the employer and not the executive, and that both conditions mentioned must apply before such suspension can take place. Now, Speaker, in the interest of the House and for the record, let me move on to the definition of employer. In respect of all members, excluding heads of department in their capacity as employees, the head of the department or any member of his or her department designated to perform the specific action, and in respect of heads of department, the relevant executive authority. Whilst the claims against the acting chief director are considered to be serious in terms of the legal prescripts, this is not the only factor that needs to be considered. A decision not to suspend the acting chief director was based on a fair and objective assessment of all the relevant factors that need to be considered before an employee is suspended as a precautionary measure. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Mvimbi. Honorable Mvimbi, you know you may not attack Honorable Mitchell. It's his maiden speech.
I see, Honorable Speaker, you are actually disarming me now. And while I was, of course, in any case, not intending to do so, let me make use of the opportunity also, Mr. Honorable Speaker, to follow and echo your sentiment in congratulating Honorable Mitchell on his new appointment to the position of being the Minister of Transport and Public Works in the Western Cape. Honorable Speaker, an impression has been created that this government protects alleged perpetrators of sexual crimes. In June last year, a senior official in the Provincial Treasury was arrested and charged for allegedly raping a 7-year-old boy. The official continued to work for this government as the department waited for the court verdict before taking any further action. On the 1st of October 2020, a female official reported a case of sexual harassment in the workplace. A criminal case was opened against Mr. Farrell Payne, and he was arrested on 12 October 2020 and released on 5,000 Rand bail. Mr. Payne was the provincial traffic chief, continued to work for this government despite facing serious charges of sexual harassment, criminal injury, and attempting to commit a sexual act. Despite the public outcry and widespread demand for the suspension of Mr. Payne, the department is adamant that its decision not to suspend the traffic chief was based on fair and objective assessment of the relevant factors. The former MEC made it clear that despite being aware of criminal complaint, no remedial action was taken against the official since there was no legal basis to do so without following due processes, as the official has not been charged in a disciplinary hearing according to the minister. 8 months after the complaint was submitted, the internal investigation has been finalized and the report is readily available, but the HOD is sitting on it. Therefore, the MEC must tell us, why is the HOD sitting on the report and not acting? What is taking so long to conclude this matter? When will this matter be finalized? We would like to know who conducted the investigation. Was it an independent investigator or official from the department? You know that the DA in the provincial government is very quick to call on others where it is not governing to be fired or suspended pending outcomes of investigation. In this case, we've got an exact case where a person has been charged criminally, yet in the Western Cape, the government continued to hide behind legislation to protect those who are alleged of this crime. We hope that the MEC will do the right thing and the honorable thing by acting immediately and suspending the traffic chief. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mvimbi. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Van Vester. Van der Westhuizen. It's now your turn to address the House.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is clear from Honorable Mvimbi's response that he wants MEC Mitchell to intervene in the administration. En sonder dat hy die geleentheid gehad het om na beide partye te luister of die risiko's en diensleweringskwessies te oorweeg, het hy, en as ek sosiale media mag glo, die leier van die oppositie klaar besluit dat die persoon onder bespreking geskort moet word. Hierdie inmenging in die administrasie deur ministers en lede van die uitvoerende gesag is presies wat ons dag na dag by die Zondo-kommissie sien.
Thank you, honorable members. I just want to take a point of order. Will you please take your seat, Honorable?
I don't know
Van
what
der
it is.
Westhuizen?
I'm trying to understand what Honorable Van Westhuizen
thank you.
is. By listening here, I'm struggling.
I will help you now. Honorable members, it is a matter of the translation services. I just want to help the honorable member. We have two, if you could switch off your microphone, then you will hear me clearly. We have two areas where you can access isiXhosa. Today I've got two of those areas. One is number 6 and the other one is number 2. So it's a rare occasion that we've got two, so that you have a speedy catch up in case there is a challenge. I will wait for the honorable member to get into that, and that is for the members who are in the house. Thank you, Honorable Mvimbi. Honorable Van der Westhuizen, you may proceed, sir.
Baie dankie, voorsitter. Speaker, hierdie inmenging in die administrasie deur ministers en lede van die uitvoerende gesag van die nasionale vergadering is presies wat ons dag na dag by die Zondo-kommissie sien. Maar dit is duidelik, ANC-lede wil nie leer nie. Selfs nie as hulle met die verdoemende getuienis by die Zondo-kommissie gekonfronteer word nie. Speaker, our questions by our colleagues in the National Assembly revealed that many senior staff in national government have been suspended for months and months, and sometimes years at full pay. Many of the disciplinary hearings are also botched by procedural mistakes. Do you believe that any interference by yourself or of national ministers in disciplinary issues, Honorable Mitchell, would be contributing to the serious delays in the finalization and the effective use of disciplinaries in the public service? I believe this kind of interference leads to a low staff morale. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van der Westhuizen. Honorable members, I'm sure we all know by now that since September last year, we've had the translation services on virtually, which is for the members who are at home or in the offices, and also for the members here who are in the house. If you go to the settings, you see there's Afrikaans, English, and isiXhosa. So if you need help, you may contact the ICT unit. They will gladly assist you. I just want to do that for the purposes of the members who are not here with us in the chamber. Thank you, Honorable Van der Westhuizen. I now recognize the Honorable Heron.
Thank you, Speaker. And Speaker, thank you to the MEC for setting out the conditions upon which precautionary suspension should take place. I think it's very clear from the two conditions that both have been met in these circumstances. And although the MEC can't suspend the Chief Director, he certainly should be engaging with the head of department about why that hasn't happened. The former MEC for Transport and Public Works, Madikizela, told this Parliament, and I quote him, "Let us start by getting our house in order as government, by protecting victims in our spaces. We have a disturbing culture of sex for jobs, sex for tenders, sex for marks." That's the end of the quote. Yet what the MEC said and what his department was doing are two separate worlds. MEC Mitchell must demonstrate that this government and the DA know that gender-based violence is not a political plaything. It demands more from public representatives than flowery speeches and empty promises. The unfolding situation in his department is a betrayal of women's constitutional rights to safety and dignity. If this government has the integrity it claims, then MEC Mitchell will take action, and we will see the alleged perpetrator immediately placed on precautionary suspension, pending the conclusion of the criminal prosecution. The HOD has allegedly been sitting on the outcome of an internal investigation for 2 months. Why is that? Can the MEC tell us whether the outcome of the investigation requires a disciplinary process, and if so, why it hasn't been done? Instead, what we're seeing is a senior Western Cape official on trial in the Cape Town Regional Court for sexually assaulting a subordinate remains at his desk, in control of the witnesses in the case, while his department closes ranks to protect him and continues to victimize the woman. We met the woman and her husband in my office. The husband had been working in the United Arab Emirates at the time of the assault. He shared the intense emotional impact of the event on their lives and the anger at the unfairness of the situation they are in. This is an aggravated case of GBV, aggravated by our own government. The former DA provincial leader and MEC told this parliament, if we don't act when it matters, it's cold comfort for victims and families. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Heron. Time is up. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Mvimbi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It is actually a very sad day in the history of this provincial parliament, where we are actually seeing that a victim is actually not protected, but instead, lot of explanation are given to actually defend a perpetrator. This is actually a sad day. Honorable Speaker, gender-based violence and femicide has been accepted as the second pandemic in the country. The city of Cape Town is home to 8 of the top 30 gender-based violence hotspots in the country. This should highlight the seriousness of gender-based violence scourge in the province. The fact that no action has been taken against Mr. Payne and other senior officials facing alleged sexual assault cases show a misogynistic and patriarchal regime that protects the perpetrators and fails the victim. And this is actually a clear-cut case of where we have actually failed the victim and we are actually doing everything in our power to protect the perpetrator. It makes all of us as members of this legislature accomplice to this alleged crime and not actually serious, as if we're actually not serious about the plight of victims of gender-based violence, femicide, and other sexual offenses. This case has been ongoing for over 8 months. 8 months. The criminal case has been postponed 4 times. That means that the perpetrator has been to court 4 times, and we are aware of this thing. And there is a case, and there is also even a case number. And we do not know what has stalled the internal investigation. We want the MEC to tell us whether he will speed up the internal investigation and suspend Mr. Payne pending the outcome of the investigation. We must not hide behind the technicalities of the right of the perpetrator. The perpetrator on this matter, I don't think has actually got the right. We should be protecting the victim. We also want to bring to the attention of the MEC the alleged misconduct by the Deputy Director General, who wrote a letter to the investigating officer handling the criminal case on the 3rd October 2020, informing him about his decision to move the victim to a different directorate without her knowledge and consent. Now, in this case, the victim is actually being moved, but the perpetrator is left. There's actually no mention at all about the perpetrator on this instance. It is clear, therefore, that, Mr. Speaker, that Mr. Payne is not working alone. He is in cahoots with other senior managers who are predominantly male, who are tirelessly working to weaken the case and to frustrate the victim. Therefore, would like the MEC to tell us what is he going to do, how is he going to deal with this matter, what is he going to do with the senior officials in the department that have tried to influence the outcome of the case. We call on the MEC to provide the victim with more psychological support services. We would like to see more support being shown to the victim.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Lastly, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mvimbi. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, let me from the offset start off with gender-based violence. And I want to make it state categorically that the Department of Transport and Public Works is fully supportive of responding to and supporting victims of GBV. The department has assisted in making 6 properties available through the National Department of Public Works and Infrastructure across the Western Cape for the Department of Social Development to create shelters for victims of GBV. In addition, Speaker, the department is now also investigating how we can allocate bursaries from the bursary program to support victims of GBV, along with other opportunities that exist in the department. So this notion of the department not caring for GBV victims is absolutely not true. Speaker, then with regards to the input made by Honourable van der Westhuizen, Speaker, I think you would agree that in the absence of the details of the cases that Honourable van der Westhuizen is referring to, that it would not be appropriate for me to comment on the situation in general or on on an individual case. However, I want to confirm that at an executive level, interference in any disciplinary matter for which the executive member is not the defined authority will undoubtedly open the door to extend legal challenges on the part of the employee. Equally, procedural correctness is of absolute importance. Speaker, then I want to respond to the process. So, Speaker, I have been informed that an initial report was submitted to the head of department, in which the head of department had consulted CSC, which is an independent investigator investigating, that's independent to the department, and CSC is located in the Department of the Premier. She had additional questions on the initial report. The second the report has now been submitted to the HOD, and she's applying her mind to the report as received. And as illustrated in my initial input, the authority to suspend vests with the HOD. Speaker, then there was an input that the complainant has not been receiving support from the department, but I want to put on record, Speaker, that the complainant has been informed that the matter is being dealt with fairly, objectively, and within the legal prescripts. Speaker, I want the honourable members to also take note that the Department of Transport and Public Works has a duty of care to both the employees, and given that both are employees of the organisation, the department will, however, ensure that this matter is dealt with ethically, fairly, and within the rule of law. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes this particular interpellation. We now move to the next interpellation, which is by Honourable Makamba Botja to the Minister of Transport, to the Minister of Economic Opportunities, Tourism and Finance, and that is the Honourable Minister Menye. I recognize the Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Speaker, and I will be keeping my camera off given my earlier challenges with connectivity. Speaker, there's no doubt, of course, that the tourism industry has been one of the hardest hit sectors by the COVID-19 pandemic in the Western Cape. And as a major job creator, this has, of course, had a devastating effect on employment in our economy. We have from day one, of course, been committed to economic recovery, ensuring that where it was safe to do so, the tourism sector was able to open and keep operating. Since then, we, of course, have seen a glimmer of hope with an increase in domestic travel, especially to small towns over the past 2 months and with the Easter weekend and other public holidays. We have, since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, led from the front and worked hard to support businesses to open safely and, of course, responsibly so that we can save jobs and save the economy in the Western Cape. Most tourism businesses, of course, have been able to tap into our support, but let me provide you with some examples. We've, of course, held continuous engagements with the tourism industry stakeholders to try to coordinate our efforts and to provide leadership. We've worked with the industry to ensure destination readiness and the implementation of the necessary health guidelines to stop COVID-19. And we have engaged in a number of campaigns in relation to workplace safety. We've launched, for example, a Safe Travels website to help domestic and international tourists to navigate restrictions on travel and be informed about the important health and safety protocols that apply in the Western Cape. And for our efforts, we've been awarded the World Travel and Tourism Council safety stamp. We have worked hard, for example, with stakeholders across government to put in place the necessary screening so that George Airport, if you recall, could open. And of course, we've supported the sector to access available funding by driving awareness of the funds that were available through our networks and assisting applicants who needed it. For example, to ensure our tour guides could access relief funding that national government had made available, we collected and verified the contact details of our tour guides across the Western Cape and submitted those details of about 5,000 tourist guides to the Department of Tourism for funding relief. We know, of course, that tourism will bounce back, but it will take place at different stages, depending on travel bans and changes to consumer behavior and the progress of the vaccine rollout in the Western Cape. But there has been a glimmer of hope and an upswing in domestic travel that has had a positive impact on the economy. And of course, we will be ready to welcome back our international visitors when they are able to travel so that we can rebuild our economy and save jobs in the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, honorable members. I now recognize Honorable Makamba Poja.
Thank you when it comes to the issue of leading the provincial tourism industry to an economy recovery path, it will take more than just engagement with key tourism stakeholders and the hosting of the leadership seminars in boardrooms. What is needed is real action that will generate money within the industry and also create more job opportunities for people with poor people, rather. It is not enough for the department to stand here and speak of plans which never come to fruition, for the department to mention of small gains here, there, from time to time. Before a major setback comes into the fore once more, it is the duty of this department, together with its entity, Westgrove, to make sure that the province attracts investors with the purpose of growing our tourism industry for the benefit of the province as a whole, but more particularly the poor, who will benefit through job opportunities provided by the industry. The negative effects that COVID-19 pandemic had on the industry following the 2020 hard lockdown are very much visible to this day. The majority of people on the ground who relied on the industry for income, be on the basis of employment or small business opportunities, have not recovered yet, as others were retrenched due to shrinking income and business opportunities, and others who just went out of business. Whilst relief packages were made available on paper by both the province and national government, the reality is that such relief packages have either been slowly processed or did not make it to the hands of those in which they were intended for. Even the programs that were aimed at uplifting people on the ground did not reach their intended targets due to lack of proper awareness campaigns, which mostly relied on internet when it comes to accessibility. Now, with regards to the initiatives such as Jump for Entrepreneurs, COVID-19 support funders, Go Digital Western Cape, and the Red Tape Reduction Unit, other than advertising these initiatives through electronic media, what other means were used by the department in making sure that the information regarding these products reach the persons on the ground, and more particularly informal traders such as maxi-taxi drivers and street vendors, hawkers selling artwork, who by large rely on the tourism industry for their income? And thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Makamba Poja. Honorable members, I now recognize Honorable Batman.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I want to ask of the Minister, in terms of the job losses in the Western Cape since COVID-19, in terms of level 5 regulations, we have seen approximately 321,000 job losses. And even though there was 121 jobs regained within the October-December period, and we have recovered so well that we are still the lowest expanded unemployment in South Africa, but there was still a 60% drop in the peak season regarding visitors. And I just want to ask, how has the Minister and the department supported the tourism sector to pivot to the domestic tourism market? And how have they supported the product development in the tourism sector? But related to the international arrivals in the Western Cape that are quite low at approximately 19%, what has the progress been on lobbying for the remote working visa? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Partner. Honorable members are now recognized. Honorable Nkondlo.
Enkosi Somlom, let me firstly agree with the minister that the act of balancing saving lives and livelihoods is something all of us we should be focusing on as part of this economic recovery. But also remind him that you don't reap what you didn't sow. As the third wave looms closer, we have to worry about its impact on the tourism sector and the provincial economy at large. Given the impact of the first two waves on tourism and the economy, we have to ask the MEC to provide details of how much resources have his government mobilized and what actions have been taken to actively support the tourism industry in line with the provincial economic recovery plan. Key to this question is to get an understanding of how the recovery plan will tackle the issue of the spatial structure of tourism production and consumption in the province. During the hard lockdown, this government spent millions in hotels and other big accommodation businesses at the expense of township enterprises that were completely neglected. Tourism is amongst major economic drivers in the province, but it remains largely untransformed and continues to reproduce and widen inequalities. We want to know how the province intends to use tourism as a tool for poverty alleviation and the government's commitment to address the structural inequalities in the sector and also in the provincial economy at large. Recently, the MEC and the Premier have written to the national government to urgently introduce a remote working visa, which they say will make great contribution to the recovery of the sector and the economy. We call on the MEC to give more details on this plan. He must expand on how it will assist the sector and how SMMEs and township enterprises will benefit from it.
Your time
It
is
must
up.
also prioritize the SMMEs and the township economy. I thank you, Speaker.
Enkosi kakhulu. Ndiyabulela, Mhloniphe. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, we know that when it comes to tourism, it plays an important role when it comes to the Western Cape economy. What I want to know from the Minister is, we know that tourism suffered badly when the first and second wave. Now a third wave is looming and they say possibly a fourth wave. What I want to know from the Minister is there any forward planning coming December and January where most of the businesses had to close down? What is the Minister looking at in December? Because we know many businesses could not function and many businesses could not recover. Is there any forward planning when it comes to the festive season where the tourism must boom and some businesses will not be able to, did not recover and will be affected again? So did the Minister and his department think forward thinking to think how if it's going to impact the beaches and those type of things? Is there any forward thinking in that regard? I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Makamba Boja. Manqoba.
Last week, when replying to questions for oral reply, the minister touched on the issue of the tourism industry and mentioned that the department distributed 5 million through the Tourism Product Development Fund to support new or existing tourism products and experiences in order to save jobs in the Western Cape. Further, that the department supported the tourism sector to access available funding by driving awareness of the available funds through your networks and assisting applicants who needed it, with the aim of ensuring that tour guides in this province could access the relief funding that national government had made available to them, and that you collected and verified the contact details of the tour guides across the Western Cape and submitted the details of an estimated 5,000 tour guides to the Department of Tourism for funding relief. So my question from the statements provided above are the following. Number one, how many businesses were supported from the 500 million using the Tourism Product Development Fund, and how many jobs were saved? Secondly, after submitting the contact details of the 5,000 tour guides to the National Department of Tourism for purposes of claiming relief fund on behalf of tour guides in the province, did the department make a follow-up to make sure that these tour guides received such funding, or the department just submitted the contact details and never made any follow-up on the matter, either with the tour guides themselves or the national department? Thank you, Samlo.
Nkosi Manqoba. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Looking forward, our approach will, of course, be to ensure that the economy, including the tourism sector, remains open for as long as possible, because our general approach, of course, is to keep the economy open, but to do so responsibly in the Western Cape. And we are going to mobilize all the resources of government to support the economy and to support the tourism sector in the Western Cape. A member, Mkamba Botja, talks about real action. Well, let's look at some examples of real action. The department has implemented a number of measures to pivot to assist the industry to pivot to the domestic tourism markets. We last year kicked off a one-day campaign to support the tourism industry in the Western Cape. It was an award-winning campaign where we showcased the beautiful attractions in our province to keep our province front of mind amongst tourists in the Western Cape. We then followed that up with a We Are Open domestic tourism campaign to urge South Africans to take advantage and explore the beauty and the diversity of our many affordable world-class attractions in Cape Town and in the Western Cape, and combine that with a further Kids Stay Free campaign. And those campaigns, I think, began to show results. The first burst of the Kids Stay Free campaign saw, I think, impressive results with 21,000 flight bookings, 2,780 accommodation bookings made via the campaign site. The second burst, which was over the Easter weekend, 6,860 flight bookings and 525 accommodation bookings via the campaign website. The honourable member talks about real action. Let's consider the Tourism Product Fund, a development fund which was mentioned. This is a fund, of course, that was designed to support new or existing tourism products and experiences, especially in our rural and coastal towns across the Western Cape. Because, of course, it's important to develop new tourism experiences that differentiate the Western Cape. And the Tourism Product Development Fund supported a number of businesses and ultimately saved 300 jobs in the Western Cape. It would be remiss of me not to pick up on the whole question of the remote work visa. To the credit of Westgrow, they have launched a campaign for a remote working visa. And as was mentioned, we have been in contact with national government to discuss implementing the remote work visa. And this week, In fact, we launched a dedicated portal that curates and promotes a range of accommodation establishments and services across multiple locations to guide those looking for longer stay options in the Western Cape, which simply makes business sense. Not only will it attract a significant number of long-term, financially independent travelers to South Africa during this period of economic uncertainty, and in the long term, remote workers are also more likely to invite their family and friends to visit in the future. And then let's look at the Tourism Relief Fund. We, in fact, supported potential beneficiaries to access the Tourism Relief Fund, and ultimately 967 applications were approved with a payout of about 48.3 million rand in the Western Cape. Equally, the question of tourism guides was raised. We again supported 2,039 tourist guides to access relief funding from national government here in the Western Cape. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That brings us to the end of interpellations. We will now deal with questions as printed on the order paper. I now recognise Honourable Minister Bredell.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and because of connectivity, I'm also going to keep my camera off. Thank you to the Honourable Moran for the question. The information I received, yes, correspondence was received in which complainant disputed the appointment of the current municipal manager in Tivatskloof municipality on the basis that there was no quorum at the time of when voting took place, and that only 13 councillors of the Democratic Alliance were present at voted in favour of the appointment, as required by Regulation 17 of the Regulations on appointment and conditions of employment of senior managers. The municipality had submitted a report on the requirement and selection process in respect of the municipal manager to my office. In developing a response to the complainants, the aforementioned report, as well as the requirements of the applicable legal framework, were considered. There are 27 councillors elected to the Tivatskloof Municipal Council. In terms of Section 31 of the Municipal Structures Act, Act 117 of 98, the Act, at least 14 councillors, being the majority of the council, must be present before a vote may be taken on any matter. Minutes of the virtual in-committee council meeting held on 30th of March 2021 reflects that 23 councillors were present at the commencement of the meeting, but that 2 councillors were not present when the decision on the appointment of the municipal manager was taken. The quorum requirement of 14 was in this regard therefore met, as 21 councillors were present when the decision was taken. In terms of Section 33 of the Act, at least 11, being the majority of the 21 councillors participating in the vote, would have to vote in favour of the resolution for such a resolution to be validly adopted. The majority requirement in the regard was therefore met, as 13 councillors voted in favour of the appointment of the recommended candidate. I have, in correspondence dated 17th of May and 1st of June 2021, respectively, advised the complainants that, based on the information that I received, that I'm of the view that the basis for the dispute is therefore unwarranted. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Moran, I know you posed the question. Honourable Moran, would you like to do a follow-up? Last chance.
I think he has connectivity problems.
All right, I'm going to then, he'll have to put his hand up if he'd like to speak. Honourable Dugmore, you've put your hand up, so you are next.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Arising from the MEC's response, I would like to ask, as a composite question, follow up, how many councillors were in support of the MEC's appointment, how many voted against, and how many abstained? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Unfortunately, I don't know of the MEC that was appointed. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognise Honourable America.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, ek is nou 'n bietjie verward in die konteks van hierdie vraag. Kan u dalk meedeel met my of dit dieselfde ANC is wat u aangekla het by die openbare beskermer vir die inmenging by munisipale aanstellings? Kan u net 'n bietjie duidelikheid gee vir my asseblief?
Thank you. Agbare Minister.
Baie dankie, agbare Deputy Speaker. Dankie aan die agbare member Amerika. Ja, dit was dieselfde ANC party wat beweer het dat daar ingemeng is as ons vra. Ek is van mening dat ons moet duidelikheid hê oor die wetgewende raamwerk waarin ons opereer. As MEC het ek 'n verantwoordelikheid om aanstellings na te gaan en kyk of hulle binne die wetgewende raamwerk voldoen, en dit is waarmee ons werk. Die inligting wat ek gekry het, agbare Amerika, was ek met tevrede dat daar was 'n quorum en dat 13 van die lede het ten gunste gestem van die aanstelling, en indien 'n kandidaat ongelukkig is, 'n probleem het hulle 'n remedy, en dit is dat hulle kan hof toe gaan. Hulle kan vra deur die PAJA wetgewing vir die inligting, en dan moet hulle die hof nader. Dankie.
Dankie, Minister. Honourable Dugmore, final person to speak on this matter.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Just as a follow-up question, I want to ask whether, in terms of the MEC's investigation into this matter, whether the chairperson or speaker of that particular meeting checked exactly on the quorum, because this was a virtual meeting, before the actual vote was taken in regard to the appointment of the MM. I'm not referring to the quorum at the beginning of the meeting. I'm referring to the obligation and the practice of the speaker in a virtual meeting checking that the required quorum was present at that moment in the council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, with all due respect, we're running into circles. I've explained the whole process, 27 councillors, 23 present, 2 drop off. In other words, a quorum will be 12. There was 13 people, or 11. There were 13 people voting in favour of that, and that is it. That is the information we received. That is the information when we followed trail. That is the information that the department's got. If anybody's got any other information, they must provide it to us. According to where I'm sitting, the appointment was accepted by the majority of the councillors, and that was my role. And I'm satisfied that the process happened within the framework of the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, you're absolutely right, Honourable Dugmore. There's the final bite at the chair.
Thank you. I just thought we were stuck on 3.
No,
on 4.
Honourable Miranda, take his.
I do have my hand up, Speaker, and I haven't been recognised as the 4th person to ask a question.
All right. Sorry, my apologies. Then your hand was up before Honourable Dugmore's. I thought that was an old hand. Honourable America, you may take it. Sorry, Honourable Dugmore, his hand was up.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Minister, ek wil net vir u vra of in die ANC beheerde rade in die Wes-Kaap word daar aan u verslag gedoen as daar enige aanstellings gemaak word in so verband?
Honourable member, what's your point of order, Honourable Dugmore?
Deputy Speaker, my point of order is that the honourable member, America, hy begin nou om 'n nuwe vraag te vra. Dit het niks te doen met die spesifieke vraag van agbare Maran oor TWK. Hy praat nou oor ander rade en dis definitief nie 'n vraag wat verhouding het met die oorspronklike vraag.
Thank you, Honourable Dagmar. Honourable America, please make sure that the question you're posing is related to the question, otherwise I will have to rule. Thank you very much.
Goed so, Deputy Speaker, die vraag gaan oor aanstellings en verslagdoening daaromtrent, Deputy Speaker. So in die konteks daarvan, vraag die minister of ander rade waar daar ander beheer is of hulle verslag doen oor aanstellings.
Kan jy net 'n bietjie waag? Honourable member, if you can just take your seat. Who's calling? Is it Honourable Kama?
No, it's Honourable Moran.
Honourable Moran, what's your point of order?
Speaker, the question relates to Tiwaterkloof. It's not a general question, it relates to Tiwaterkloof. And the question that the Honourable America asked is a general question, relates to all other appointments. The question was direct, it refers to Tiwaterkloof, and his question should be based on that particular question that's been asked by myself. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honourable Moran, and it is a pity that you did lose your opportunity to speak earlier because you were not unfortunately available. Honourable America, please can you finish your question so that I can hear? Please can you give the opportunity for Honourable America to finish his question before interruption? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'm of the view that it is not for the honourable member to question the substance of the question. Is for the minister to respond and to direct me whether it is applicable or not. Thank you.
Can I ask a new question?
Honourable Moran, is that you again?
Member Kama, Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Kama, what's your point of order?
No, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Actually, I raised my hand earlier, even before Member America asked the question, because I wanted to get clarity from you, Speaker, because an indication was given earlier when Member Maran could not raise his hand that he might have network challenges. And later on, he then came in even before the fourth hand was taken, and he had raised his hand. And earlier, the speaker had ruled, I think Minister Meunier had network challenges. And we said because of those, we allow a space when people fix their network to get that opportunity. And I feel Member Maran had been back even before we had exhausted the questions and should have been given the opportunity rather than us giving Member America another opportunity when the question was from Member Maran. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Dugmore.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Again, on a point of order, my understanding was that Honourable Moran had connection problems, but when he came in, he asked a point of order. That was a point of order. It wasn't a follow-up question. I would like to ask you as Speaker to rule that the last question by Honourable America was not a question in the sense that it was not a follow-up question. Therefore, there's one more question left, and I would like to ask you, Deputy Speaker, to allow Honourable Moran, who's now back in the House, to ask the final question, follow-up question. Thank you.
Honourable members, if I can just be clear, I rely on table staff. I have not been told by my table staff that the way I've seen the questions being held, remember it's the little hands and I watch on the computer screen. So I believe that what I've done is correct. I would like to suggest that the minister can decide if that is a new question, but unfortunately in this case, so in the case of a debate, Very understandable. You've got connectivity problems, but do remember that it still is the onus of the members to have connectivity, and that's part of the reading of the rules prior to the sitting taking place. This is a first come, first serve. Only the person who posed the question gets the opportunity straight away. So I can't then decide after the fact that Honourable Moran can come in and I have to move another member whose hands has been up out of the way. So I'm going to disregard that, unfortunately. Please, honourable members, if you've posed the question, I will give you that opportunity. You can put your hand up on the screen and you don't have to be shouting out. I have table staff who's watching that very carefully. I will stay with the ruling that I have made. We're moving on now to the Minister to be able to answer the final question.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Personally, I think that appointment is crucial and we need to get it right. I think it's all political parties' responsibility to see to that where they're in government, that they appoint the best people for the job. We owe it to the citizens of this country. It's funny how jittery the ANC is on the question that was posed by Honourable America. And we do struggle in a lot of our municipalities to get the right information. And our roles is to see to it. I cannot appoint on behalf of a municipality. I don't make appointments. I've got as MEC a role to play and to fulfill within the legal framework. So we check that there's quorums. We check that when they've done the interview, that the panel consists of the right members on the panel, etc. And if it's within that frame, then my job is done. And if any of the candidate feels that they were treated unfairly, they do have a remedy, and that remedy will be the court. But I do want to ask all political parties to really take appointments and the employment of people, of staff, very seriously, because it's the only way we can get rid of corruption. It's the only way we can service our people. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That brings us to the end of question 1. We move over to question 2. Honourable Kama, please be on standby. I now recognise Honourable Minister Fritz.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I can't switch on I'm from a very rural area, so I don't have camera facilities. If I may just start with the first part of the Honourable Member's question. And I just want to preface this answer by saying I'm so happy to hear that Honourable Windvogel agrees with the way we dealt with COVID and asking people to get out, to go and register using every means possible. And the honourable member, it seems as if he has a big problem with the approach of asking neighbourhood watchers to go and assist in registering older persons in their communities that are not able to register themselves, but where they can play the role. And I just want to start by saying, Honourable Deputy Speaker, against the background of the COVID-19 interventions into areas as identified and into the hotspot areas as identified by Cabinet, the department partnered with neighbourhood watchers and all their structures to slow the transmission and reduce the spread of COVID-19 virus. As such, the department partnered with 43 neighbourhood watch structures. In other words, 43 areas. The ongoing campaign against COVID-19 and the impending third wave, and we want to avoid the third wave in this province, requires a whole of society approach, in which all sections of the society must play their part in defeating this virus. This is indeed an evil virus. The call made to neighbourhood watchers and community police forums must therefore be understood in the context and in that specific context. Furthermore, it was a request that neighbourhood watchers voluntarily participate in the door-to-door vaccination advocacy in their communities. And the whole of society approach includes neighbourhood watch structures, CPFs, non-governmental organizations, community-based organizations, religious organizations, all of them. We have made a general call like the Honourable Windvogel was supporting impacting on a community and in the community footprint. It is only by aligning and coordinating responses to the scourge of the virus that we can hope to defeat it. And so I was amazed when the Honorable Dagmo also said that, you know, our whole approach and our system was a failure. I don't know, I think he lives in a different world. But here in the Western Cape, we know exactly what goes on. I just had my jab today, so I'm on a high. I'm still suffering from the consequences of the jab as I speak. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We're very happy to hear you. Fine. Honourable Kama, that is your question. So would you like to pose a further question?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think, Deputy Speaker, crime is also an issue that we need to deal with in the province. Hence, the birth of the Western Cape Safety Plan. Now, I want to understand from the minister, because neighborhood watches and all other structures are the main structures, community safety structures that are mentioned by the department in our quest to fight crime. Now, I want to get an understanding of what work towards this work that is being done to halve the murder rate in the next 10 years. Now, what work is impacted by us continuously taking these structures like your neighborhood watch, because we believe that they are activities that they are supposed to run. What is this partnership that we have in terms of the day-to-day activities of the neighborhood watches to ensure that we protect our communities and realize this goal of this safety plan? Thanks.
Thanks, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Kaba, for that question. I think it's a very good question, and I will be able to just really put the context. Let me just explain it perhaps slower, Honourable Kama. You know, neighborhood watches are the first responders in a particular neighborhood. So they're the first people walking, marching up and down the street. All we say, as you are marching up and down the street, to protect that street from people breaking in or from those characters who's always out to commit crime. While you see the lady of 61, while you're busy walking down the road, we're not saying you must not go out of your way. We say while you're patrolling, you see a woman of 61 or of 60, ask the woman whether she's already registered for the vaccine. Explain to her that she can get registered, and here on your phone, we will, in fact, we gave them data to use it, because the same data is used to report crime. Let them use the data to register people. All we're saying is get this approach of a far bigger, a far whole of society approach, a far bigger approach than walking like little bliksoldaatjies and just going to arrest people, but to actually do crime prevention work, health work, all of it in one. And that's the basic point we're making, Honorable Kama. We've also asked, and I think you seem to forget, that during COVID, hardcore, when your minister was running on the beaches arresting people, our neighborhood watchers worked in all those hotspots to assist in queues, in managing queues for COVID. Did you forget that, Honorable Member? They were managing social distancing. They were doing all of that. And in the process, they also stopped crime happening while they were doing that. So I think perhaps your thinking should be far more contextual, my dear intellectual Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Fritz. I now move over to Honourable Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, in May 2020, the National Police Minister released a statement in which he stated that he has been visiting the provinces to assess enforcement by the security forces as well as adherence to the lockdown regulations. This is in light of the high levels of non-compliance with regard to the COVID-19 regulations. And as the Minister indicated now, the National Minister even patrolled the beautiful beaches in Cape Town to monitor adherence to COVID regulations. So through you, Deputy Speaker, whether the Minister is able to clarify the all-encompassing nature of safety responses and how it is implemented in relation to the Western Cape government's whole of society approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Regan Allen for that question. Again, I think a very, very good question, because this is exactly the point. The Honourable Kama is now having an issue with us asking people to do something constructive, to get people to register for the vaccine, availability and to get a vaccine. That minister ran on beaches like a madman. He ran up and down on Muizenberg Beach, then Sea Point Beach. Everywhere where he saw someone on the beach, he went ballistic. Then he went to Langabaan, the same thing. And we are saying, hello, get off the beaches, assist in areas where we have seen during the heart of COVID, we've seen how people didn't adhere to basic requirements of COVID regulations. And I'm talking about Sabining and how Sabines operate. And, we had to come and close them, unfortunately. But the point we're making, it is the religious society. It's what the Kaya Licha Development Forum that we work with, all those civil society organizations that we will win this battle. And so it is also with that same organizations. What the Honourable Kama forget, it's because of the hotspot program that Kaya Licha in the second one didn't feature. And we're not claiming, and I want to emphasize, talks, Department of Community Service is not claiming the kind of credit for that, but I promise we contributed hugely to that because they were all shocked. All the scientists were shocked. The point we're making it is that exact point that the Honourable Regan is asking of everyone. The Honourable Speaker of this House sat on a Sunday evening meeting with us until 10 o'clock at night. And people don't stop talking, but on that meeting started at 6 and it finished at 10. And it's that sacrifice, it's that involvement of everyone, all civil societies, formations that had the effect that the second wave couldn't feature in Kaya Licha. So, Honourable Kama, with respect, my friend, let's get real and let's not just have little critical questions. That's absurd. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Minister. Is that Honourable Kama? Is that your second opportunity you're taking up?
Yes, Deputy Speaker.
You may proceed.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thanks for the answers so far. I really wonder, Deputy Speaker, if the minister could start answering the questions than analyzing them, because the question now that I have, Deputy Speaker, is as I had said in the first follow-up, that Neighborhood Watch, if you talk about the Western Cape Safety Plan, and the first thing that you are told about in that plan and in terms of your community structures and that we see that is being supported are your neighborhood watches. And now the question is, what work, because we're asking now about the relationship that the department has, because it's even different now what is being compared to. We're being told by a minister that was coming to enforce law. Police are meant to do that. Neighborhood Watch are not meant to go to people's homes and ask them to go and vaccinate, as important as that is. But we know that we have a plan that we're investing in as a government, which we say we want to halve the murder rate in the next 10 years. Now I'm asking, what relationship, what are these activities that they were supposed to have daily? Because they also complain about more activities that they want to have, but with no adequate support from the department. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Allen, is that a new hand or is that an old hand?
Deputy Speaker, I'm just checking if there's another opportunity, but I believe
there's one more. You and Honourable Kama have each had a chance and had another chance, and this is the final bite. You may take it.
Will I first ask before the Minister answers that one?
May I answer, Deputy Speaker?
Apologies, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Kama, I think the point we are making, and I think, I don't know whether you heard about the area-based teams within the community safety plan. I'm not sure you've heard of the area-based teams, because the area-based teams and the whole area-based approach is premised, Honourable Kama, on the fact that neighborhood watches, yes, as you said, the primary responsibility and mandate is to, and if we say fight crime, they don't even have a torch. We are supplying them torches and we're supplying them jackets and bibs. So they don't fight crime. They try and prevent crime. and they try and whoever they can restrain until the police arrive. So the point we're just making, the neighborhood watchers have become far more professional and forward-thinking than the way you guys are thinking of Bambananis. You know, you unfortunately so in the 1980s with these Bambananis standing at the school gate washing the principal's car. These guys are also, our neighborhood watchers are also, for instance, running youth camps. They're also doing all those kind of issues. They're doing far more.
You misinformed, it was not in the 80s.
Yes,
Order.
Chief, can you please, Chief Whip, can you please restrain from commenting while I'm talking? These guys are far more professional and progressive and forward thinking, future thinking. You still in the, sorry, not the 80s, 1950s. These guys, these new formations are, and it's just a few probably come and complain to you because they can't think forward like the others. What we will do is we will work with all neighborhood watchers, even those who are complaining to you. We will go and work with them and convince them. And as I said, their primary job is not to register. We're just asking them, listen, while you're busy, combating crime, register those people in your community that's older than 60 because we want to win the war on COVID and on crime. Imagine you have people dead, not from COVID alone, from crime, but then others are dying of COVID. Please, sir, see a bit more rationale.
Minister, 1 minute. Point of order. Honourable Dagmar, what's your point of order?
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I wonder if you could rule on this matter. I sometimes find that when Honourable Fritz gets excited and the sort of the levels of his voice rise, it's actually impossible to hear him because he appears to be shouting or sort of squealing. And it's very difficult to understand him. I wonder if you could appeal to him.
No, Honourable Dagmar, that's not a point of order.
That's not a point of order.
Wait, Honourable Dagmar, you're so frustrated. Yeah, thanks. I just feel sorry for Honourable Dagmar. He's so irrelevant. He doesn't know what to ask anymore. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. And Honourable Allen is having the last opportunity. Over to you, Honourable Allen.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. I just need a yes or a no answer from the Minister. In terms of the initial question, I feel that what the Minister has answered is noble and that councillors and neighbourhood watchers are able to play an active role to help and assist during this possible third wave that we are approaching. Will the Minister basically continue to advocate for that and continue to encourage neighbourhood watchers and community policing forums to play a role in order to curb the spread of COVID-19? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Yes, sir. In order to stop the people dying of COVID, the ANC don't care about people dying. That's the problem.
Yes or no.
Thank you very much.
Yes or no.
Order.
So it's a big resounding yes, and to get the ANC to understand, to assist in stopping the people die like they do in the other parts of the country. The rest of the country is a joke. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. That brings us to the end of question 2. We're moving over to question 3. I recognise Honourable Minister Mbombo. Honourable Allen, can you just lower your hand, please?
Can you speak up? Deputy Speaker, can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear.
Okay. Thanks for the question, Member Van Vogel. This year, due to COVID, we have to stick to the COVID safety protocols. So various localized events were held to commemorate International Nurses Day. For me, I attended the one that was at Western Cape College of Nursing, together with top management, which is Dr. Pluto, HOD, DDG for Corporate Affairs, Chief Director for specialized services. But generally, each and every facility, taking note that we have got, I think, 13,825 nurses, permanent nurses out of 32,000 plus of the staff members, with more than 200 facilities, which is each and every facility there's a nurse. So that's why that each and every facility could be able to do whatever they could be able to do. So that's where things are. But the one that was at the Western Cape College of Nursing was on virtual. Also for the others across specifically, the nurses, operational managers and the nursing service managers. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Windvogel, would you like to pose another question? Follow up? Honourable Windvogel? I take it that you're not there. I'm going to move on. Honourable Philander.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, through you, can the Minister kindly indicate what initiatives did the department undertake to support nurses in managing the COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you for the question. From the beginning, taking note that the COVID was new in the context of South Africa, actually was new in the whole world, meaning we're dealing with an unknown animal. So therefore, the fears of unknown, they were expected. So hence, from the beginning, we started with clinical protocols so that people can understand how to manage the virus. Take into consideration context by context, because how you manage it in ICU will be completely different when you manage it, for example, at the small clinic. Also, the circular and also the protocol related to the PPE, which is quite very much a hot debate and topic during that time, because when we used to see from TV, it was about, you used to think that if you are in the health facility, you must wear a moon suit for PPE, type of PPE, and then you hide goggles and all of those. And then with as evidence keep on coming in, that's when we realize that actually if you are a health worker outside, not necessarily in the COVID, generally like in the primary care spaces or even in the wards, the mask and of course the aprons and all of those were essential. And then up to the level where we find that those in the maternity, especially when you are busy with the second stage, which is when the woman is actually delivering, there's a high level of potential spread. Therefore, we have to also apply more stricter rules and also in terms of the PPEs. So the psychosocial support, which as a whole of a provincial government, they find that it's transversal in the .P, which is the Department of the Premier, but we ended up centralizing and localizing as many, which is even currently is happening at the level of a facility and also available throughout, not only for the staff, not only nurses, I'm talking about the general healthcare workers, because it's a combination and all of those. And also we had, I think once every second week, where we will have these virtual, where we'll talk about sharing our own experiences and also even the newish kind of the evidence that has come up. So it has been mostly around about that, where you have to look at a point that they are reskilled, they are upskilled, and they get supported because the environment has not always been as normal as it could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any further follow-up questions? I don't see any hands up. Going once, going twice. I conclude that question. I now move over to question 4. I recognize Minister Schaefer.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and to the member Christians for the question. The procedure that was followed in the closure of the school is that which is set out in the South African Schools Act, Section 33. Certain persons objected to the school being closed at the time and repurposed into a special needs school. When their views did not prevail, some of them resorted to intimidation and violence in this regard, resulting in the WCED having to obtain an interdict against them, stopping this sluggish behavior, which order was granted on an unopposed basis in February this year. Some of the persons against whom the interdict was obtained have now approached the High Court to review my decision and to close this high school at the end of last year. And the record of my decision in that regard has now been delivered to the State Attorney to be filed at court. That record reflects the reasons that were put forward for the closure of the school at the time, as well as the public consultation process that was followed prior to the decision being taken. That High Court application is, however, still to be determined by the court and is hence currently sub judice. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable questions, as it's your question, any follow-up?
Yes, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for that answer. Minister, I just want to know, the community out in Graawater is still in uproar, and as you said, that they went to court. And they are complaining that their complaints on their petitions were not entertained anyway, and that the department just had a decision to do it irrespective what the desire of the learners and the community are. The question is, were their complaints and saying that the children now need to go to another school and all those problems, they feel that the department did not entertain any of them or did not accommodate or do not want to accommodate it because it was a decision made and they were not important in that regard. Is that so, Minister?
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. No, that isn't so. All submissions that were made and comments that were included in the public participation process were and are always taken into account when I take such a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognise Honourable Botha.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, through you. Minister, in protest against the conversation of Graawater School, where an honourable member of this House participated irresponsibly, according to me, and misled the public on the need for a school of skills in the northern parts of the West Coast, because we have none. Can you explain why a new school was not built for learners with special needs? Instead of repurposing this school, Minister, for learners with special needs?
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Botha, for that question. Yes, I think it's important that we realise that it wasn't just simply a closure of a school. It was closing the school as it currently existed to repurpose it into a different kind of school, which is, as you correctly say, very much needed. Graawater, the repurposing it into a special needs school was, of course, a good use of available resources and also should not be seen in isolation. It is part of the greater plan for the West Coast involving a number of schools, which increases learning opportunities overall. 2 schools were not being optimally utilized, and it is incumbent on us as government to use all our resources optimally. By doing this, we kept our high school in a wider area and also provided a much needed special needs and school of skill in that area. It's also important to look at, the needs of the special schools. We had only 71 public special schools across the entire province, but only 3 in the West Coast Education District. And we thus felt that it was extremely important that we provide for this much needed school in that community. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Kama.
No, thanks, Deputy Speaker. What I want to understand, Deputy Speaker, was what I'm not hearing is if we can get a sense of these, what are the main issues that are being raised by this community, such that they would go to this extent in terms of fighting to ensure that they get the decision of the minister reviewed.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you. As I said, the objections and the exact nature of those objections will form part of the court case, so I can't go into them in too much detail. But as my former member said, Member Botha previously said, there was certainly a lot of political opportunism at play in this, as there are in just about every court closure, school closure in the Western Cape. And I think although there were some genuine concerns, I think some people certainly exploited concerns and didn't give the full story and also gave incorrect information to certain individuals. So those will all be aired in the court case. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Just another question, and thank you for the Minister on that. Just a question. Those learners that now need to travel to get to the closest public school, what was the arrangements made to get those learners, and also to make sure that we do not lose learners in the process? So is there enough traveling arrangements to accommodate these learners? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and to the member. The fact of the matter is that many learners were already travelling before the repurposing of the schools in any event. Every day we transported 156 learners from Lambert's Bay to Graafwater. So now it's sort of just the other way around and it's far fewer. So there certainly is adequate transportation that has been arranged for learners, and they all do qualify for transport in terms of our learner transport policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. That brings us to the end of question 4. We're moving over to question 5. I recognise Honourable Minister Simmers. Minister Simmers, are you there? Minister Simmers, can I just ask the IT to contact him? Otherwise, the question will fall away. Okay. Honourable members, if I can't hear Minister Simmers, I'm going to put question 5 over and start with question 6, if I may, for the interest of time. Honourable Minister Mbombo, are you ready to answer question 6 for us while we find Minister Simmers? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Member Mackenzie, for the question. The COVID pandemic has placed the entire health system and especially our staff under immense pressure. Feelings of compassion, fatigue, the burnout, the stress, insomnia, anxiety and depression have become increasingly common amongst our employees during the different waves. It's not only applicable in the Western Cape nor in South Africa, but throughout. Coupled with this is the fact that we have lost about 122 in the public sector, but I think it's about 180 something combined with the private sector of our colleagues and loved ones due to COVID. We have had a functional employee health and wellness program for a number of years already and was able to support staff on a range of issues, taking note that initially it has always been a transversal under the Department of the Premier, but for the period of October to December 20, we have seen 2,832 employees that have accessed the Employee Health and Wellness Program, either individually or also as a group. The department recognized the immense impact the pandemic has had on its staff and also has initiated intentional healing and grieving sessions with our frontline workers and managers. Because when you have a colleague who has passed on and you have been working all together in the same unit, or even that colleague who might not have passed on but has got a family who has passed on, it does have an impact on other staffing that are surrounding you. Similar when you're working in an environment like an ICU, where you find that most of the deaths occur in the COVID ward compared to other wards. That does have a huge impact on the well-being of the staff. So it is crucial that at the time that we come up with these sessions where we offer our staff the opportunity to reconnect with each other, to share and to support one another through difficult times, which everyone has experienced in one way or another. Just talking, because even among themselves, not necessarily even to bring the external psychosocial, which, as I indicated earlier in the last question, I responded to that now it has been localized so that it becomes available throughout. The department also recognized the need for staff to rest and recuperate, and in between the two waves, we've encouraged and granted staff to take leave so that they can spend with family members, and this has offered them time to recover. Because the mental well-being of our staff has been and continues to be one of the top priorities for the department. Especially, we don't know exactly how many waves we'll get. But when we look in terms of what is happening across other countries, for example, in the UK, for the first time.
Yeah. Order. Please, can you just mute? Thank you. Apologies, Minister. You may proceed.
Probably let me stop with the Deputy Speaker. I'll listen to the questions. But yeah.
Thank you. Honourable Mackenzie, do you want a follow-up question?
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Minister. This topic is very, sometimes we forget all our staff members and 87,000 staff in this province work day and night during this very difficult period, particularly our nurses when they have to deal with death, and we forget that they're also human beings and a family. So this is a very personal topic to me. So thank you for that, Minister. Minister, I just wanted to find out, how is this service being received by the staff members of this province, and has it contributed to the Western Cape government being the most efficient in dealing with the COVID crisis in the country? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
The mere fact that it's highly utilized throughout, and also we have got now these health and wellness clinics throughout in the facilities, it does show that it is effective. And also you might probably have observed that in as much as that, especially during the high levels of the COVID, there have been many of the protests among the staff throughout other provinces from the Department of Health. When you compare to the province, you may find that we haven't had as many as such. Of course, we might have some concerns, because I don't want to portray as if there was a satisfactory kind of for the whole of the staff. But what is crucial is about engaging with the staff. We've got a better relationships with the organized labor, with the unions, where even some of them, they are also part of, they've got a representation at the higher level, not only as part of the local settings or context level. The issue of the negotiations and also having a conversation with the staff. As I always say, that it doesn't, it doesn't cost you much to engage and go to the staff. I've been to as many other facilities where we engage with the staff so that to iron out some of the things that sometimes we find that the issue is not about the person who's got the grievances, but it's about when we don't find each other and have a conversation. So I want to thank Dr. Pluti, and also with the team from the HR, including the from the Mr. K, who has also been instrumental in regard to these negotiations and also conversations. And also at the national level, they ended up learning more from us in regard on how to build relations and relationships among ourselves as the Department of Health, where at least for us, the resilience and also for being there for each other, it was what also contributed to such, plus also the occupational health interventions that are required and are imperative in the space of where we are working with the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Any final follow-ups? Over to you, Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for the answer. Minister, I just want to get an idea from you. What do you think can be done to improve the services, and perhaps to conclude on that? And for how long do you think the services will remain in place? As you know, PTSD, obviously, people will deal with a lot of death over the next few months. And is this services going to remain in place indefinitely? I know that we're dealing with tight budgets, etc. Just want to get an understanding how do you envision this service to stay over the next few months? Thank you.
Minister?
Yeah, thanks, Member. We need to understand that the COVID is no longer only a health problem. It's a socio-economic and political kind of a problem. The face of the COVID, we see it's beyond in terms of being can only be managed by the health system. So when we open up non-COVID services, when at least probably we are in between the waves, it means that we'll be dealing with the people who might not presenting with the COVID, but who have been affected by the COVID. Throughout where I meet people when they'll say that the whole of my family was wiped out, I'm the only one or two or three of us who are left behind. It means that these are the families that will be coming to our facilities with these kind of the psychological burdens, and meaning that our staff might not necessarily be infected as much now, because we haven't seen any staff death from our staff ever since, thanks to the vaccination, because we've vaccinated more than 60% of our staff, those who wanted to be vaccinated. So in as much as that, we might not get as much of the impact with the staff being infected or even dying, but that they will be attending to the clients who are fragile and also who might be wounded because of the post-effects of the COVID. It does have a huge impact. I'm talking from my experience also as a healthcare professional, although I haven't practiced clinically whilst during the COVID, but I understand when you are being overwhelmed with people who have got many other challenges, when you get home, you feel like crying where you don't know how, what else we could have done to help Mama or Auntie Sarah, who has got 5 or whatever, 3 kids. So Member Mackenzie, it's about, I don't think the psychosocial support and the well-being will have a kind of a time frame. Because even if now it might not be localized at the facility level, but at the Department of the Premier, because it's a transversal, it will always be there, and also for any other staff member thereof. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to question 5. Honourable Minister Simmers, I know that you could not quite communicate, but you're there. You definitely were there. Minister Simmers? Can you phone him on his cell phone? I'm just going to give a quick second, Minister Simmers. We're just going to phone you on your phone, please, so that we could allow you to finish your question. And then we will conclude. Yes, yes, you can. Minister Simmers, can you hear us? Yes, I can. I'm going to put this. Yes. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you, Member Christian, for the question. And the provincial department has spent well over 400 million in this property. This means that if I exclude the provision of taxes, we are left with 2,400 making new ground DMG units that could have been built early, that will not have been due to the cost of our land and so on. Another important matter on the question we should not lose sight of is the fact that some of the folks in Texas are outside in the
Deputy Speaker.
Deputy Speaker. 1 minute, Minister. 1 minute, Minister.
We cannot hear.
1 minute. Is that a point of order, Honourable Kama?
Yes, we definitely can't hear anything, Deputy Speaker, from this side.
Okay. Honourable Minister Simmers. Just give me a second. Is it a bit too loud? Minister Simmers, can we just test the microphone again? Yes. Can you hear us, Honourable Christians?
No, Deputy Speaker, I cannot hear at all.
Okay. Minister Simmers, unfortunately, I'm going to have to make a decision on this matter. I apologise because the members who posed the question can't hear you through the cell phone. I trust that my sincere apologies. I will have to just call it a day on the questions with regards to that. And outstanding replies will be printed in the Hansard. My apologies, Minister. Honourable members, we move forward to statements by members. I now recognise the Democratic Alliance.
Deputy Speaker, last week the leader of the opposition sought to grandstand on principles of cooperative governance by saying, and I quote, "We call on MEC Bradell through the Speaker to be bold and tell the City of Cape Town where to get off." And yet the member's very own ANC colleague, Minister Barbara Creasy, refuses for her department to cooperate with this Legislature Standing Committee on Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. When I wrote to Minister Creasy on the 24th of May this year, inviting her and the department to attend a meeting this week with the province and Cape Nature on the clearing of invasive alien vegetation, her terse and short response was, should the Western Cape Legislature wish to conduct oversight on a national department, the correct route would be for the province to ask their representatives in the Select Committee of the National Council of Provinces to raise these matters. Is it only her department that will no longer accept invitations from the Western Cape Provincial Parliament? Or has this been a cabinet decision? Does this only apply to the Western Cape? Deputy Speaker, our invitation contained no reference to us wanting to gain oversight over another sphere of government. In terms of Section 115 of the Constitution, a provincial legislature or any of its committees may summon any person to appear before it or produce documents. This is very different from trying to use a backdoor to get answers for political witch hunts. Such questions should in fact be posed by legislators at the correct sphere of government. Deputy Speaker, I conclude. I call on the Leader of the Opposition to engage with his colleague Minister Barbara Creasy and to request that she reconsider her decision. Deputy Speaker, we should not let party politics and an upcoming local government election put our environment and cooperative governments at risk. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Now recognise the ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the dismissal of the Provincial Head of Detectives, Major General Jeremy Vieri, has sent shockwaves throughout the nation and the province. This dismissal must be challenged. The expertise of General Vieri is needed to fight. Is needed in the fight to rid our communities of guns, gangs, and extortionists that are terrorizing our communities. The dismissal of a thinker, strategist, and a dedicated, hardworking general over a social media post leaves a lot to be desired. We have to caution against the weaponization of the rules, systems, and sub-disciplinary regulations to target and silence those with contrary views. Together with General Jacobs, they headed Operation Impi, which uncovered a trace of thousands of illegal guns which were sold to Cape Flat gangs by bad police. In March this year, in my capacity as ANC spokesperson on community safety, I wrote a letter to the President and His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa and petitioned him to act on the widespread and deadly divisions within SAP's leadership. My letter was redirected to the police minister who was asked to intervene. I have since written a follow-up letter to the minister seeking a feedback on this matter as it needs his attention. It is in its desire to have a provincial police force. The DA in this province has been central in widening the divisions and worked with those who criminalized and persecuted the very same General Vieri, including sometimes using fake allegations which were later thrown out of court as they were devoid of truth. These divisions, if left unattended, will further weaken SAP's ability to fight crime. We call on all to not participate in the perpetuation of these divisions. We must fight for united police service for the safety of our province. What we need is an interministerial committee of the security and social cluster to fight crime in the Western Cape. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And I recognise the EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Economic Freedom Fighters condemns the DA-led State of Cape Town Council for approving an additional 170.8 million for purposes of additional security to guard vacant land. The money, which should be used to build poor people houses and also provide them with services, is now used to enrich white-owned companies such as Red Ant Security Company. This move is nothing but a shame under the false pretense of protecting the land, whilst the true aim is to protect and secure the financial interest of white-owned security companies, which will later be expected to reward the DA with financial kickbacks. The move is also unfortunate when considering that the majority of poor people in the province remain without basic services. Not long ago, poor and unemployed residents of Level Town Informal Settlement in Khayelitsha had to contribute 10 rands and 20 rands per household in order to buy and install water pipes and also build their own toilets by themselves without any assistance from the city. It is high time the poor residents of this province in the informal settlement and other townships stands up and speak with one voice to remind that this racist DA-led government, that it is in the people who govern, and that the power granted to this government through a ballot can also be taken away through the same means. This government has forgotten its duties and think that the only interests they must serve are those of white people. The DA-led Western Cape must fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Now recognise the DA.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Are you able to hear me? So sorry. Just to
I
check.
can. You may proceed.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. Based on what Member Kama just said, I am deeply concerned because all of these issues are undermining our safety responses here in the Western Cape, and I sincerely trust that Member Kama will receive such a reply from the National Minister of Police. But that brings me, Speaker, that the Provincial Department here in the Western Cape of Cultural Affairs and Sport plays an integral part in keeping young people safe and away from risky behavior such as substance abuse and gangsterism. And through the role in the safety plan, the department is responsible for the coordination of the youth in service programs aimed at helping young people access job opportunities. But also, Deputy Speaker, the department is also tasked with after-school programs aimed at keeping school children focused on extracurricular development and minimizing dropouts. In addition to this, Deputy Speaker, the provincial department recently allocated 12.9 million to sports federations across the province. This is an increased effort in promoting sport in the province, which will ultimately improve the cognitive, emotional, physical, and well-being of our young people. But Deputy Speaker, in ANC-run provinces, they should be taking lessons on how to efficiently run departments. In the Northern Cape, for example, as of April 2021, not a cent had been distributed to the arts sector by that provincial government. Deputy Speaker, in 2019, state-owned entities under the National Department of Sports, Arts and Culture incurred 160 million in fruitless, wasteful and irregular expenditure. Some of these entities, Deputy Speaker, include the National Arts Council and the Robben Island Museum. It is clear that under the ANC rule, the South African sports and culture sectors are hamstrung by a chronic lack of funding from the national government, coupled with mismanagement, corruption, and wasteful expenditure. All, Deputy Speaker, without a shred of accountability. For the ANC, it's all about their pockets and not the people.
Thank you very much, Honourable Allen. I now move over to Good.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, gender-based violence has plagued South African communities for a great part of our history. Furthermore, at the advent of lockdown, South Africa saw a great increase in this violence as femicide, domestic violence, and physical and emotional harassment soared drastically. Deputy Speaker, as much as these heinous crimes go against the foundations of our law, a greater crime is still left unattended. That is that those who commit these vile acts are not facing the full might of our legal system. Earlier today, we had this government making technical arguments for sitting on its hands, while a survivor of an alleged sexual assault is violated again by her department. Hearing the MEC tell us that the department has assured the survivor of their objectivity and their fairness, while transferring her out of her workplace and leaving the perpetrator in place and in charge, is bureaucratic government doublespeak. We will soon have a Women's Day event. This government shouldn't come there once again to tell us that they stand opposed to GBV, because their actions betray their words. We should also consider what has been happening in our schools. We should at least expect schools to be a safe space for children, as their homes are often not. Sadly, the Minister of Education recently advised us that across the Western Cape, 102 school-going children have been sexually harassed or been violated in one way or another at school. The consequences for the perpetrators are dismissals, written warnings, or disciplinary hearings. We await confirmation from the Minister that the Education Department has also acted in terms of the Childcare Act and the Sexual Offences Act. Deputy Speaker, we cannot have a legal framework, soaring gender-based violence statistics, and yet we have a government that fails to act when staff and teachers are protected by convoluted legal excuses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. And now call on the ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, on Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021, morning traffic was again disrupted by a massive protest action that negatively impacted the traffic. Among the roads that were affected was the N2 freeway, the R300, Swartklip, Baden-Powell Drive, Easter River Drive, Meway, and Hindle Road. At the N2 and Baden-Powell Drive, tires were burning, which added to the disruption. It is reported that it brought traffic to a standstill through protests by local informal settlements demanding water and temporary toilet facilities. On Wednesday, the 24th of March, 2021, major routes, including the N2 again, the R300, Stellenbosch arterial, roads within Kraaifontein were blocked off by service delivery protests. These protests were organized by a movement called Intungi Yaza Mato Tombi Beni, which translates to pain of the slums. Koliswa Lobela, spokesman for the movement, says that the protests are held because of a lack of service delivery. There are no toilets, no water, no electricity, and no waste management system. Speaker, this cannot continue. And the ACDP is asking government to intervene as our people, instead of taking a half-an-hour journey to work or to home, adds another 1.5 hours or 2 hours to the journey. This cannot continue, and something needs to be done. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And now recognise the ANC.
Deputy Speaker, the ANC notes once again just how ironic it is that the DA has the word democratic in their name, yet the way they govern clamps down on the democratic spaces, especially in this House and in how they govern, using international relations as not being a provincial competence as a fig leaf of not wanting to discuss the humanitarian crisis and gross violations of human rights in Palestine. This DA-run legislature denied this House the opportunity to discuss and condemn what is happening in Palestine. The former Premier once led a delegation promoting halal products on the one hand in an attempt to boost the former MPL's chances
Point of order.
Sorry?
Take your seat, Honourable Member. There's a point of order from the Chief Whip. Honourable Member, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. From what I can hear, the Honourable Member is challenging a ruling of the Speaker. Is that permissible?
No, it isn't, but I will just check and see in the Hansard in terms of what rule he's actually challenged, or if he has challenged a previous rule that was decided upon. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Sure, it's my right to differ with the Speaker on a ruling. I'm just
so
differing.
Can I just ask what your wording was?
I'm differing. I think the courts will decide whether that decision was correct.
I will let that pass if you are having a difference of opinion. You may conclude.
Okay. Just if I can, from the table through you, Deputy Speaker, just repeat this part.
Yes, please.
The former Premier once led a delegation promoting halal products on the one hand in an attempt to boost a former MPL's chances to ascend to the position of MJC president, while on the same trip taking bottles of wine as well. All this in an opportunistic attempt to win the support of Muslim voters. Yet this House refuses to discuss the oppression and killing of Palestinians, a matter which affects all of us, Muslims and non-Muslims. As if this provincial government does not have relations with other countries and foreign provinces or states. This is a classical case of the DA clamping down on freedom of speech and the freedom to debate issues of international concern. The betrayal of the right to freedom of speech must be challenged in court. Last week, the MEC for local government went to great lengths to defend the city, and no doubt other municipalities who will adopt the same posture of the city in denying the opportunity to be accountable and responsive. Again, the Honourable Bradell hid behind the fig leaf of law while conveniently omitting to mention sections 54 of our own provincial constitution and Section 105 of the Systems Act. The provincial constitution in particular reads, the Western Cape government must, by
Your time is
legislative
up.
or other measures, sorry,
Your time is up.
provide for the monitoring and support of local government in the Western Cape.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognise the DA.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. As we commemorate Child Protection Week, I'd like to extend my gratitude to all the organizations, communities and stakeholders who are playing a part in the protection of well-being of children in the Western Cape. In particular, I'd like to extend my congratulations to the Children's Commissioner, Ms. Christina Nomdo, and her office. We've just concluded and celebrated their first year promoting the voices of children in the Western Cape. The important work ensures that this province works for our children. However, Deputy Speaker, despite the work of the province in partnering and supporting entities that promote the well-being of our children, the National Department of Social Development is delaying progress in the province. As we speak, the Department of Social Development has only received 793 approved stimulus relief funds applications from the National Department, yet more than 3,000 applications come from the Western Cape. At the same time, the National Department parades around the country with below the bar successor during Child Protection Week. How can our children be in a safe environment when the National DSD delays its support to one of the key sectors, which in addition to promoting their cognitive and emotional development, act as a haven for our kids? We thus support the call from the province to reopen the stimulus refund process in order to achieve the targets of providing support to ECD centers and their workers. Furthermore, we urge our national government to live up to the mandate and display a level of competency which will pay our funds to provinces timelessly so that we can distribute it to qualifying ECDs urgently. It is no secret that the ECD Centre has suffered huge losses due to the ANC government's stringent COVID-19 regulations, and their recovery will need support from all spheres of government. We thus commend the Provincial Department for putting efficient measures in place to ensure that the correct ECDs receive the funds allocated to them. We hope that the ANC government and our friends across the aisle can urgently speak to their colleagues at national level and reflect on the importance of the well-being of our children as the ANC continue to do on a daily basis. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And I recognise the Freedom Front Plus. No.
Yes, I'm here.
There
Thank
you are, Honourable Member. Over to you.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, on the 1st June 2021, I, as a member of this legislature, I was invited by the officials to a virtual briefing to the media and the public by the Financial and Fiscal Commission. Now, I accepted the invitation, although I don't serve on the Budget Committee, because it was an official invitation. And the department said no, it was also addressed, the invitation, to members of Parliament. Now, I represent the whole Western Cape constituency because I'm the sole MP of the Freedom Front Plus. The invitation itself read, the Commission will be briefing the media and the public on this submission on the 1st June. But while as the chairman of the meeting noticed my raised hand question time and invited me to ask my question, I want to lay a complaint that I was embarrassed and completely humiliated and insulted by the FFC chairperson, Michael Sachs, who very rudely overruled the chairman, saying he refused to answer any questions put by Mr. Marais or any member of Parliament, and that he will now mute my mic. I was shocked. He muted my mic. I don't know why he was allowed to control it. I therefore will be drafting a letter of complaint addressed to you and the Speaker, and ask that the contents of my complaint be addressed and the arrogant and racist conduct of this official's behavior be investigated, as I feel entitled to demand a written apology from him.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member. And now recognise Al Jamal.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The month of June is a historical month on our calendar, which marks the bravery of our youth, the heroes of June 1976, 1980, 1985, and beyond, which forced the then oppressive regime to end its reign of terror on the dispossessed and oppressed people of South Africa. Al-Jamaa salutes the spirit of the youth who stood up against apartheid policies. They have indeed played a very important role in our struggle for freedom and liberation. In 1976, youth uprisings led by the Black Consciousness Movement, which started in Soweto, profoundly changed the political landscape of South Africa. The killing of protesting students had dire consequences for the apartheid government. Images of police firing at unarmed students who marched peacefully spread throughout the world, thus exposing the brutal and violent system of apartheid. These images, the tragedy of our history makes one think of the images of the 66 Palestinian children killed in Israel airstrikes on their homes in Gaza. Like the youth of South Africa discharged consciousness in the world of the liberation struggle. The resistance in Palestine has also lit a flame of humanity as the world responded in the outrage against the massacre of 66 Palestinian children and men and women. It is our responsibility as freedom-loving people, some of us who know the pain of apartheid, as government at all levels, to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians to support their struggle against occupation and apartheid. During this month, during this Youth Month and beyond, let us honor the children killed in Gaza like we honor our youth who paid the ultimate price for liberation. We call on this provincial legislator to end any international trading with Israel and to stop buying Israeli products. I thank you, Deputy
Thank you,
Speaker.
Honourable Member. Now I recognise the DA.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, fellow South Africans, according to the Stats SA Quarterly Labour Force Survey for Q1 2021, the official unemployment rate in South Africa has increased in the last quarter by 0.1% and stands at 32.6%, which is the highest it has been since the start of the survey in 2008. The rate of youth unemployment in South Africa has increased since the last quarter and is currently standing at 63.3% for the youth between ages 15 to 24 years old for Q1 2021. And the age group of 25 to 34 has an unemployment rate of 41.3%. On average, the unemployment rate for youth is 52.2% for the age group 15 to 34 years old in South Africa. In contrast, the Western Cape's working age population, ages 15 to 64, has increased by 1.9%, the largest increase alongside Gauteng, and now stands at almost 4.8 million people. The survey also reveals that the Western Cape holds the lowest expanded unemployment rate in the country at 27.9%, and that we have the lowest number of discouraged work seekers between the three large economic hubs, which is Western Cape, Gauteng, and KwaZulu-Natal. In the past year, the effects of COVID-19 pandemic and its resulting lockdowns have led to one of the worst economic downturns in recent years, and economies are slowly recovering from its effects. The Western Cape government launched several programs and funding opportunities since April 2020, which has worked to protect jobs and SMMEs, supported the tourism sector, and assisted businesses in reopening safely under restrictions. Despite these efforts, systemic issues by the national government, such as poor infrastructure, a failing national transport system, particularly rail, and load shedding, are obstacles that hinder the growth and recovery of the Western Cape economy. And the DA in the Western Cape remains committed to creating an environment that creates jobs for the people in our province. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. That brings us to the end of statements. In terms of Rule 145.6, I now give one of the members of the Executive an opportunity to respond to member statements for not more than 5 minutes collectively. Are there any Executive members that would like to respond? No. Thank you. That brings us to the end of members' statements. We now move over to notices of motions. In terms of the new Rule 151, of all notices of motion by members are required to be delivered to the Secretary for placing it on to the order paper. These motions have been duly submitted and published on the order paper below the line. We now move to motions without notice. I would like to inform you that in terms of the standing rule of 150 pertaining to motions without notice, condolence and congratulatory were submitted to the Programming Authority prior to this plenary on the 1st of June 2021. Members are also reminded that motions without notice pertaining to congratulatory and condolence will not be allowed in the sitting that have been processed by the Programming Authority. I have been informed at the Programming Authority meeting of the 1st of June 2021, political parties did submit the names of honourable members in the desired order of speaking and who had wished to move a motion without notice in the sitting of this House. I will therefore, just for noting and for the purpose of the minutes, call out the honourable members whose names have accordingly been submitted and approved. The following members' motions have been approved by the Programming Authority as follows. Honourable Allen, Honourable Barnes, Honourable Botha, Honourable Christians, Honourable Botha, and Honourable Sayed. I now put the motions duly submitted and approved by the Programming Authority to the House. Are there any objections? No objections? Agreed to. The motions will appear in the minutes of the proceedings and in Hansard in each individual member's names as if that member has read them aloud. I will now afford the opportunity to members to move motions without notice as per Standing Rule 152D. This could also include motions without notice that were not approved in the Programming Authority meeting. Members are reminded that the 30 minutes as per Standing Rule of 152D will start now. I recognize Honourable Dugmore. I think I'm going to call it out as per name. Honourable Dugmore? Or let me just say the ANC.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I would like to move on behalf of the ANC that without notice, that this House notes the arbitrary changing of subjects for debate by the Democratic Alliance in this legislature and condemns the protective stance of the DA-run legislature to protect itself from criticism and by so doing undermine the fundamental right to freedom of speech and debate. I so move.
Deputy Speaker?
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice?
Deputy Speaker, before
Yes,
Objection.
that changed the debate.
1 minute. We have Honourable Mackenzie standing up. Honourable Mackenzie, what's your point of order?
Before I object to that motion, which I will do after you've addressed this matter, we've talked about challenging the rulings of the House and using different mechanisms to challenge the rulings of this House. That motion, and there's a difference in disagreeing with the ruling, but there's a difference in using different mechanisms in challenging the rulings of the House. And I just want you to just to make a ruling on it at the next session.
Out of order.
I object.
Okay, so there has been an objection, but there's also been a request, Honourable Member. There will also been a request for me to listen to that motion again. I will revert at the next sitting once I've looked at the Hansard of whether there's a direct challenge on the rulings of this House. So that motion has been objected. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognize, I'm going to just, honourable members.
Deputy Speaker?
Yes, Honourable Lecker, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I would like to know under which rule is Honourable Mackenzie moving on?
Honourable Mackenzie, Honourable Lecker, I have agreed to look at the motion at the next sitting. So I'm not making any ruling on the motion itself.
66.5.
No. Honourable Chief
Point of order.
Honourable Chief.
Point of
Honourable
order.
Chief Whip, I'm not going to accept. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
point of
understand.
order. I just heard who I think was the Honourable Chief Whip just shouting. She didn't.
Speaker, I'd like to bring up a point of order.
Order, please.
and I would like you to make a ruling on her conduct as
Right.
well. Thank you.
Honourable Chief Whip.
I've had my hand up for a few minutes now and have not been recognized.
I understand. I'm just responding to Honourable Lacker. If you can just allow me to complete my statement, is that I am not going to make a decision on this ruling. I have agreed with Honourable Mackenzie that I will make a decision based on this on the actual motion at the next sitting. If that's okay. Honourable Wenger, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Mackenzie was rising on Rule 66.5. And further, I would like to object to Honourable Dugmore's motion because it is incorrect. It's not the DA that changed the topic for discussion. It's the Al Jamal Party that changed it no less than 3 times. So on that basis, we cannot agree.
Thank you, Chief Whip. We don't need to substantiate, but I accept that the motion has not been approved. I would just like to say I'm not going to go through the whole list. I recognize that there are only 4 motions without notice, if I can correct, and that's the table staff can support me on that. So I'm going to go per name. The next person on the list is Honourable Makamba Botia.
Thank you, Sekela Somlomo. On behalf of the EFF, I move without notice that the House notes and condemns in the strongest possible terms, the action of an opportunistic group called Cape Sect, who have been going around sowing the seeds of division in the province. Whilst classifying themselves as an independent and non-political movement, this group has been going around desperately seeking people's signatures under the disguise of requesting a referendum with the national government that will see Western Cape being separated from the rest of South Africa. Further, whilst we note that their actions are nothing other than a pipe dream that will end in vain, we also note that these actions have connotations of colonialism and apartheid tenets, which rely on divide and rule. Such desperate and shameful actions should not be tolerated, and all those who participated in them must be condemned and ridiculed with great fervor. Without any hesitation, I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections? Agreed to. I now recognize Honourable Murray.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Speaker. Let me just get it. I move without notice that this House requests the Premier, in terms of Chapter 3 of the National Constitution, relating to cooperative governance, to declare a dispute in terms of Chapter 2, subsection 7C of the Western Cape's Constitution, and thereby enter into talks with the National Minister of Police regarding the dismissal of Major General Veery, our Chief Detective in the Western Cape, with a view to having his dismissal reviewed, thereby retaining his services. The dismissal of our Chief Detective will negatively affect the fight against crime, corruption within the Western Cape, and the harsh sanctioning meted out to General Veery cannot be seen to be justifiable and in the best public interest of the people of the Western Cape. I so solemnly move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections?
Without notice, yes, Speaker.
Yes, there are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Honourable members, it's just come to my attention that the motion that Honourable Dugmore read is not the motion that the Honourable Dugmore submitted before 11 o'clock. I'm going to, for Hansard, make a decision and rule that that motion that he read be taken off this order paper, Honourable Dugmore. You have to follow the motion that you submitted at 11 o'clock, and it doesn't match the one that you read. I cannot accept that motion for this sitting. I so rule. Thank you very much. And then the final motion.
Point of order, Speaker.
Honourable Marais, what's your point of order?
It's not really a point of order. Just, I didn't hear who objected to the motion. Could I just ask again, because it was interference here?
The Democratic Alliance objected to your motion, Honourable Marais. Thank you. Honourable Mvimbi, you are finally on the list for motions without notice.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC a motion without notice that the House discuss the taxi violence in the city of...
A bit louder, Honourable Mvimbi, I can't hear you.
That the House discussed the taxi violence in the city of Cape Town municipality. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Honourable Mackenzie, what's...
Sorry, I didn't hear the motion properly, so that the House can discuss what?
Can we just, for the record, read it into the Hansard, Honourable Mvimbi?
Okay, maybe let me also remove the mic, the mask, then Deputy Speaker. That I rise on behalf of the African National Congress and I move a motion without notice that the House discuss taxi violence in the city of Cape Town municipality. I so move.
Honourable Mvimbi, is that a motion without notice that you've submitted? Or was that a motion with notice that you submitted?
Is without notice.
Without notice.
Sorry, Deputy Speaker, if I may, I mean, taxi violence is a topical thing we have to discuss, but I don't understand the motion. That we discuss it or that you...
Yeah.
Is the motion with notice for a topic of discussion? I'm just trying to understand.
Honourable Mvimbi?
I think then, Deputy Speaker, it is a motion. It's a motion with notice. My apologies.
We can't accept that, unfortunately. Okay. Thank you very much.
Apologies.
Honourable members, that brings us to the end of motions without notice. The Secretary will read the order of the day.
Consideration of report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill B3/2021 NCOP.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The House received the report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill, conferred authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP not to support this bill. This mandate has been sent to the NCOP. I will now afford parties an opportunity to make a declaration, if they so wish, for a maximum of 3 minutes each. I recognize the ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As the ANC, we reiterate our minority vote to support the division of revenue. And allow me to re-emphasize the fact that the DORA bill and its underlying allocation are the result of extensive consultation between national, provincial, and local government. Our equitable share formula with its 6 components, which takes into account the relative demand of services, economic disparities, and the change of demographics in each of the provinces, is progressive. I raise this deliberately to debunk the false claims and the notion of a Western Cape that is targeted and patched by the national government. Provinces get a fair amount of equitable share and they have the autonomy to allocate resources to meet basic needs and respond to provincial priorities. The crisis in education and health should not be blamed on national government, but the province's autonomy, which chooses to spend billions on look and feel good programs like the safety plan and provincial vaccine rollout, while it ignores crisis of unplaced learners. The ANC welcomes the principles of the DORA and the series of interventions introduced in it, including changes to a number of conditional grants, including the introduction of informal settlements upgrading partnership grant as a Schedule 5 grant in 2021-22, meaning the fund will be used purely for the upgrading of informal settlements. We celebrate this, especially given the slow pace of upgrading of informal settlement and ignorance, especially in the city of Cape Town. We welcome in the increases in the conditional grants for education, especially the education infrastructure grant, the increase for health, especially the additional 140 million that has been shifted to human resource and training grant for the hiring of medical interns, as well as the allocation for the COVID-19 component, as well as for the comprehensive HIV and AIDS and TB grant. The ANC welcomes that rural areas will receive more per capita per household funds through this Division of Revenue Act. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The EFF will not participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize Good.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We have no declaration.
Thank you very much. The ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. No declaration.
Thank you very much. The Freedom Front Plus.
Speaker, in light of the most recent COVID-19 reports presented to the Standing Committee, to the effect that there was a 25% increase in COVID-19 infections over the previous week and a 33% increase in the Cape Metro, especially the more affluent areas. Budget cuts to the extent of 20.7 billion rand over the next 3 years spells disaster. Despite our excellent effort by our health department to try and contain it. As representative of the Freedom Front Plus, I therefore record my rejection of this budget.
Thank you very much. Al-Jamal.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. No declaration. Thank you.
Thank you. The Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Fellow South Africans, in terms of the revision of Revenue Bill 2021, the Western Cape Provincial Government is receiving 54 billion rand as its equitable share, an accounting increase of 771 million rand, which is 1.4% more than the 2020-2021 budget. However, we were supposed to receive 59 billion rand. We received 54 billion rand. In the 2022 year, we were supposed to receive 81 billion rand. We are now receiving 71 billion rand. And in the 2023, we were expecting 84 billion rand, but are now receiving 72 billion rand, representing a total budget cut of 26 billion rand over the 3 years. Further, the Western Cape Provincial Government is receiving 13.5 billion rand in conditional grants, but this is 45 million rand less than expected overall. In 2022, we will be receiving 618 million rand less, and in 2023, 993 million rand less, equating a total budget cut of 1.7 billion rand over the new 2021 million rand over the 2021 MTF period for conditional grants. While one appreciates the increases in some of these grants, such as the education infrastructure grant of 75 million rand and transport provincial road maintenance grant of 151 million rand, these amounts are offset by the large reductions in the Health National Tertiary Services Grant, 288 million rand cut, and Health Human Resources and Training Grant, 116 million rand cut based on the 2020 MTF period. To date, the Western Cape is still waiting for the 2 billion rand promised by President Ramaphosa to assist the province with COVID-19 support. And in the current budget allocation, the Western Cape had to bolster the budget with 1.7 billion rand in terms of a deficit with our own provincial funds. Further, when reviewing the provincial equitable share formula, it does not take into account the holistic provision needed for individuals moving towards economic centers such as the Western Cape and Gauteng, and there are delays in the reporting of the population, outdated data used in the calculation, does not allow for the need to deliver services immediately to residents, ignores the cumulative effect of the cost of living adjustment, ignores crime, gender-based violence, and special needs student statistics. Based on this, the DA supports the ratification of the final mandate to not support this bill. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I would just like to check with the Secretary how many members are present. Thank you very much. I can confirm that there are currently 37 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. The question put before the House that the report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP not to support this bill be ratified and adopted. No objections? I recognize your objection. That will be noted, honourable members. And I don't think I need to vote, Honourable Mr. Secretary. We don't need to go through the ayes and the nays, do we? Just give me 1 minute. Can I just check? Do we still have to follow? Okay, noted. Thank you very much. I'll just follow the process, Honourable Dugmore.
Yes. My understanding of the motion, Deputy Speaker, is that this House is being asked to vote against the National Division of Revenue Bill, even though our province has its justifiable share of the equitable, etc. Is that what?
Point of order. Point of order, Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Chief Whip, what's your point of order?
Parties have had an opportunity to provide 3-minute declarations. Honourable Dugmore is abusing of the opportunity at the moment. His party has had the opportunity to provide declarations.
All right, thank you, noted. And just to remind everybody that we are dealing with the report. So those in favour of the report being adopted, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
no.
Aye.
Those in favour of the report being adopted, say no. I recognise the ANC.
No.
Thank you very much.
No.
Thank you, Honourable Dugmore. I think the ayes have it. The question is approved. The report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill has therefore been adopted. Thank you, honourable members. That concludes the business for the day. The Secretary will now end the meeting and all members will be exited from the sitting. The House is adjourned.